Hey guys, J-Man here. Before we begin the live stream today, I just wanted to let everybody know that channel memberships are active, and I only have one tier right now, and that's the Super Friends tier. It is a recurring payment every month, but it does help support me and the channel. And right now I'm offering all of my Super Friends access to my personal G Drive. So this is where I keep a lot of the comic books that I review for the channel and that I do for the live streams. So if you do join, I'll give you access to my G Drive so you can actually get the comics and read along with me or read them in advance. Batman and the Outsiders is on there. That's the full run. That's right there. Got volume 1 of Jack Kirby's Black Panther. That's actually his entire run too. Frank Miller's Sin City, Green Arrow, Uncanny X-Men. I also take requests. A few of my super friends wanted some D&D modules, which I actually was able to provide for them as well. So there you go. It's only we have only just the one tier. So if you decide to join, I'd really appreciate it. If not, that's totally fine. I know not everyone can become a member of every channel, and I appreciate that. So it's great to have you guys on right now, and just liking the videos, supporting me that way, subscribing, sharing the videos, all that stuff is really helpful. So I really appreciate it. That's it, guys. Let's get on with the live stream. Hey everybody, thanks for joining us today on Days of High Adventure. We're talking about the Shadow. If you've ever thought to yourself, who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men, then it's the Shadow that knows that. Of course the Shadow knows that. Before we get talking about the Shadow, let's talk about what's going on tomorrow, and that's the Legion live stream. Episode 79 of the Legion live stream. 3 more issues starring the Legion of Superheroes. We're approaching the end. This is the beginning of the end here. That anniversary issue is huge. It's like 3 comics in one. So we're only going to do 3 tomorrow. We're not going to do 4. So it's going to be a lot of fun talking about that tomorrow. And the Substitute Heroes teaming up with Superman in DC Presents, one of my favorite series of all time. This Wednesday got a special treat here. We're going to talk about Recoil. This is going to be on the Action Elite Live, so you got to make sure that you're subscribed to the Action Elite. That's my friend Owen's channel, and can't say for sure. We might have the director of the movie actually present during this live stream, so that's going to be really exciting because there's a lot of great stuff to talk about on Recoil. I just watched it for the first time ever a couple of days ago, and it's absolutely bonkers. So going to have a lot of great stuff to talk about on Wednesday. And then Friday, we're back with The Outsiders, issues 16 to 21. I don't have the thumbnail for it yet. So we're getting there, but there you go. Let's shout out the Super Friends. These are the channel members that we shout out every stream. Dan, Sean, Steven, Brennan, Mark D, RR, Philip Story, S182, Digger Jim, Quagnar, Legion of Comics, and Just Joe. And of course, we shout out Clobberin times Mike Alonzo, who hated this movie. That's okay. He hated it. What are you going to do? He didn't like it, but that's okay. He definitely would have joined us anyways just to talk trash about it, so that would have been fun. But in any case, we miss him, and we always mention him because he is our friend. So there you go. All righty. Let's bring in our panel so we can get going here. Yo.
Shadow. I guess the closest shadow thing I have.
Yeah, I'm wearing Terrifier underneath, so I was like, I could have changed. I was gonna wear Spy Smasher.
No, that's
there.
Yeah.
But then I thought, I'll just. I brought my Shadow toy, and I've got.
Oh yeah.
I actually have like a decent amount. 6, 8. I've got 8 Shadow pulps. That's decent.
Oh, you have the pulps? I don't have any. They're expensive as shit, man.
What? No, Sean, relax. Not the real ones, the reprints.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Jesus Christ.
They're like hundreds of dollars.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Are you, like, all right, there you go, Sean. Wake up.
I was like, what the hell? This man's made of money.
No. I've got 1 Spider original pulp. That's it.
Okay.
You were there when I bought that one.
Yeah.
It was like $25 and it looks like someone urinated on it.
I know. I've got lots of pulps like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. And you bought them from our buddy in the center.
They look awesome from
They
afar,
still look good.
Them, it's like someone's shadowing them. Yeah.
Yeah, like they're still okay. So, anyways, all right.
Yeah.
Hey, Steve. The shadow knows. Yeah.
And obviously, Microsoft made an update, and my camera doesn't work when they do an update.
Well, that's part of the update.
Yeah.
All right. Let's bring in who else? Let's do Mr. Fancy Pants.
Well, hello, Mr. Fancy Pants.
Charlie, you're Mr. Fancy Pants today.
I'm Mr. Fancy Pants today. I wore black for the shadow, just like I did for Zorro black, and probably all the other ones I do. So
you just wear black anyway.
It goes with everything. Okay,
it does go with everything. Yeah. All right, let's bring in our final panelist.
Finer. I see his favorite.
That was the wrong word. I'm gonna now. Okay, now I gotta slap myself. All right. Okay, how about this one?
I mean, what does that say about me?
I don't know. What does it say?
It says you can shit in my mouth.
There you go. There's Mr. Ross.
Oh, he's got a shadow action. Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, I like that one. Hold on. Let me see.
Sun is shining, but the ice is slippery.
Yeah.
That's the one you have, James.
That is the one I have, but that's outside the packaging.
Yes.
Ooh, and a motorcycle.
What's that?
Cycle.
Oh, cycle.
Where does that come from?
That's fake. Fake news.
Look, in the 90s, everyone had to have a motorcycle. Okay, every action figure had a motorcycle.
Oh, the shadow falls.
Oh no, the shadow has fallen.
Yep.
The shadow falls.
Is that Neil Green?
That is Neil Breen.
Yes.
Wow, look at the shit.
Deep.
That's deep.
Cut.
Yep.
Ooh, that's really deep in there.
I do have a story about this.
Oh no! Hold on a second. About the shadow motorcycle. Yeah, you can tell that story.
Okay.
We're gonna say we haven't. I was like, we haven't even started, and it's already Neil Breen.
For me, Neil Breen to the. So back in the 90s, I parlayed my position as a lowly floor clerk at the bookstore
Right.
to get into a toy convention. It wasn't a convention; it was a trade show actually. So it was like a West Coast version of the toy fair, but it was mostly for educational toys. But Kenner was there, and they had the shadow stuff in a glass case on display. And I was oohing and eyeing it. I asked them if I could have a catalog, and they said, "Are you really, the buyer for your store?" And I was like, "No." And they said, "Okay, we really need it for the buyer for the store."
When someone asks you if you're the buyer for a store, you say yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. To my regret, I said no.
Right.
So we're talking about it. So I asked them. I don't know if the movie had come out yet or whatever, but I said, "So what's with the motorcycle and the sidecar and some of the other things that they had on?" That never were either not in the movie or only in the movie for like a second.
Yeah.
And the rep for Kenner said, "Well, we were lucky enough to get to the movie people before they started filming and tell them that they needed to have some things we could sell as toys, which is why you see Shiwan Khan's sidecar for like 2 seconds in Chinatown." Yeah.
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 Yeah. Okay.
All that stuff was in there because the toy company said we need these things to be able to sell as figures.
Who are these like?
Do they have Shiwan Khan's awesome costume? That's very Kennerish in the movie.
No, they don't have no.
You
I'm
figure
looking.
they made that for the toy.
Yeah. So it is a fact directly from the sales rep of the toy company that if you see anything in the movie that's like, why is that only in there for like 2 seconds? It's pretty cool though. That's probably something that they thought that they were going to do a toy based
Toy placement.
Yeah. So okay, they've got look. It's totally random. So I want to say hi to FK who is here, and yes, Alec Baldwin would give it his best shot. Like, is this going to be? This is the theme now of tonight.
Okay.
Johnny is here. Thank you.
When he agreed to do the movie, you'd say he pulled the trigger.
Hey,
Really, Sean?
This is 90s Baldwin. We're not doing current Baldwin. Yeah, 90s.
Know your Baldwin. It's
That's
like
right.
know your Baldwin. They've got they got bulletproof shadow. Like, what is that? What is bulletproof shadow? Like, what is the difference between that? Like, it's like a different toy, and he's got like this other mask or something. So they've got normal shadow.
It's like all the Batmans they were making at this time, like Jungle Vision, Arctic Batman, or whatever.
Arctic, all those.
So they got
from the movies.
So
you spin his head down into his chest. The Lamont Cranston one, you spin his head down into his chest, and then the shadow pops up on the back.
Oh, that's cool.
When did he fight it?
No, it looks stupid
White
as hell.
Ninja on the
really
back.
Small.
I mean, clearly this is the only one that's needed, right?
Yeah.
Like,
it's the only one that's collected, really.
I want the car. The car looks badass.
The car's
on the back
cool,
of that.
yeah.
I would do the car. That and the cab. Yeah. Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, any of those cars, like those
in the car in the movie.
Yeah, there's Shiwan Khan, like a couple of. This is battle mode. He's become Wolverine.
Yeah, wow.
That was
What the hell?
I like it. I like it.
Why?
Wait a
What's
minute.
bare chested shadow?
That's when he's with Penelope Ann Miller. Woo! I didn't bring out the radio show, which I have like hundreds of episodes of, but I brought out these are the reprint ones. I don't know if you, Sean. I don't know. Sean and I, we get a free one every time we go to one of these shows. There's guys that would give out a freebie one. Wow. So I've got and you get do you get two in here? Yeah. So you get two per thingy. I'll show them. I'll put myself solo just for a quick second. You get two per reprint, so they're pretty decent and they're big. Like so, the actual two you get is the ones on the back here.
Each novelette was about 80 pages or so. So it's like
two completes.
Wow.
And then there's your two that you get.
Because what they did is they didn't include the other mystery stories that came out.
Shadow. So for I like Avenger, which I have a bunch of Avengers, but like for the Shadow, or not the Shadow, for the Spider, the backup stories was either the Masked Marksman or Red Finger. I can't remember which one was which. And then the other one is Operator 5, and then the backup stories for Operator 5 was the other guy. So it's either Red Finger or Masked Marksman. I think Red Finger was the Shadow, or and what's his name? Masked Marksman was Operator 5, and then that's the last one.
And those covers really sold the Shadow. It's
he's
wearing a costume.
Those look amazing.
Yeah, those are cool.
I got the Shadow scrapbook over in the back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't feel like bringing it. I flexed enough with the Zorro stuff.
Yeah, there was that's it. So that the Blu-ray of this, I had the novelization of this, but I'd given it away. And I've got a collection of the Orson Welles radio shows on CD or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I think that's it. So I don't have a lot of Shadow. No, I don't have that. I don't have any comics or anything. Hey, Classic Comics. My friend Classic Comics is here, buddy. Thanks, man.
I got a ton of the comics.
Yeah.
I didn't get any of the I don't have many of the Dynamite comics because I just didn't like them at all.
I just have the DC comics. Yeah.
Yeah, those were good.
Yeah.
Rosebud. Yeah, Rosebud is in the shadow. Yeah, Rosebud is the Shadow.
So have you heard how much of those radio shows have you heard, J-Man?
A lot of them.
Yeah.
I would play them all. I like Green Hornet. Actually, my favorite is Blue Beetle. I think I've heard of those. I've heard of all. Blue Beetle is easy because it's only like 20 something.
Yeah.
Do you shop at Serial Squadron?
No.
Wow. Oh, really? You need to go to Serial Squadron. I'm supposed to have that guy on 2 years ago, and he's like, I'm colorizing Tiger Woman. I can't come on. Like whatever. He wants to desperately come on. And we can never align it because like
are those like legit? Is Tiger Woman like public domain? He's able to do that, or is he just
he restores them himself? So he's got radio shows. So he sent me all the Basil Rathbone, and I've got all the Jungle radio shows. Like it's a DVD of MP3s, or like it's a DVD of I mean, it's massive. I'd have to
So
go
it can hold like 1 million megabytes of audio, right?
I already have Tiger Woman, though. This is the colorized Tiger Woman. Now they're doing a black woman.
Does he have? I mean, is he just getting the public domain ones? And
no, I don't know. He's got. I don't know. I bought them from him. I don't know what he has.
I think they're legit because I have some stuff from him, and they look like the official release.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of times fans will do a better job than the official release. So.
Okay, so let's talk Shadow for a sec here, at least.
Right.
So we saw. Okay, I mean, did everyone see this in the theater?
Yeah. Many times.
Charlie, did you see this one in the theater or no?
Wasn't able to get to it, but this was like an immediate rent once it came out on VHS.
So basically, I mean, I saw this in the theater for sure. I loved it. I thought it was awesome. I was going to buy the dagger. There's a shop that was very close to me that had all of the movie weapons.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to hold all 3 Rambo knives. There was only 3 Rambo movies at the time. I didn't like the third movie's knife because it wasn't the aviator's knife that has the compass and the sewing kit.
Survival
kit. It didn't have any of that in there, the Rambo 3 knife. So I didn't like that. But the Rambo First Blood and First Blood 2 is the same knife, only First Blood Part 2 has black trim and black I guess decorative or whatever versus the military green. But they had the Shadow dagger and they just gotten it. It's heavy. It's like a heavy duty prop. Now it was CGI'd or whatever. And I remember like looking at it now, it's kind of like it doesn't, it's not as good. But when we saw that in the theater, we were like friggin' high five and we thought this was like a great movie. And like, I'm trying to think if this wasn't my introduction to the Shadow, but it got me more excited to pursue other Shadow things. Like, okay, let me look more into this character. I love this movie. I thought it was great. I like Penelope Ann Miller anyways. I liked her in other stuff. So she was like looking pretty good in this movie. I thought Alec Baldwin was great. I love the ice is slippery. The sun is shining, but the ice is slippery. I like that. I like that he saves guys and then they become his agents. He's like, okay, well now it's like, oh, thanks, man. It's like, no. There's not a thanks and you're walking it off. It's like, it's a thanks. And now you're one of my boys. And when I need you, you're going to come and help me out. That's awesome. Shadow Mafia. So there you go. I really liked it. Sean, what did you think? We wouldn't have known each other back then. So what did you think of it?
In the 80s and 90s, I used to listen to a show on the radio on Chum FM here in Toronto called Theater of the Mind. And I think it's still around. They have 2
Ron, buddy, what's up?
Hey, Ron Jammin. They double bill 2 shows. And it was usually Shadow or something else like Boston Blackie or like Harry Lime or like, Superman or something like that. X-1. What's the other one I liked? Lights Out, the Arch Obler thing. So I listened to a lot of the Shadow, Sunday nights, and which is funny because the show I feel was syndicated so much in the 70s and 80s, on radio and stuff. And that's the version of Shadow I knew. So my dad was excited that this Shadow movie was coming out, so we both went to see it. And I guess he wasn't that familiar with the magazine version. And so he was like, what the hell's with this costume and everything? Because it's the problem with the Shadow is there's 2 different popular versions. And so like you either know the radio one or you know the magazine one. This movie tries to mesh both together. So it's like that whole the contacts and everything is from the magazine, the ring is from the magazine. The invisibility powers from the radio show. He never had powers and stuff in magazines, right? So, and it's a mixed bag whether it works. I know everyone's gonna be like, oh, it's awesome. It's kind of weird for him to have the costume from the magazine and also have an invisibility power. Then why do you have a costume, right? And I think they overdid the invisibility power in the movie that he just looks weird. He looks like a fart monster or something. And then he has a weird Foley. Like they insisted on having a sound effect for it. And which defeats the purpose. Like anyway, so that it frustrated me as a kid because I was like, I love the radio show, and I was like, so then I had to dig deeper into what this shadow thing was, and I collected the DC comics, which were at the time in like back bins and stuff like that, and then I got to know that there's these two different versions, and they both fizzled out by the 50s, and it never jumped to television and stuff, which is unfortunate. I think it's a neat little movie that tries to combine the two. If it were me, I would pick one version and stick with it. I would just do magazine stories with the costume and everything. I would just do that. I would ditch the whole mind invisible thing. Like the villain is from the magazines too. He doesn't have all that stuff. He just wants to take over the world, right? So, it does make him more threatening. And what's interesting is that I think they're both supposed to be of equal power in the movie, but they emphasize Shadow's like invisibility thing because that's what he did in the radio show. So let's do that. But like, I like the way that they use the power for the villain. Like it's just, this is what it would be, that he just tells someone to do something and you do it, right? Like Firestarter or whatever.
Purple Man.
Yeah, it's a Purple Man thing. Like he tells the one guy, "You need some gas." He drives right into it.
or it's the Jedi. It's the Jedi mind trick or whatever.
And he even does that with Jonathan Winters. It's like, you're not going to arrest the Shadow, you know. So yeah, it's a fun footnote. It's like Dick Tracy in that like the Shadow wasn't really a big deal leading up to this, and this movie killed the franchise, just like Dick Tracy's thing. It's like, you know, not a lot happened after this, right? You know, they do the reprints and everything, and I think now it's just a niche. Like, you know, people like us will buy that stuff. But I wish that it wasn't. I feel like the brand was mismanaged in its heyday. Having two different versions, it's a classic. I mean, it's DC and Marvel doing this now, but it's a classic case of like diluting the brand. And characters don't even know. People don't even know which character they like, right? And it didn't make it into television in the 50s. There was no Filmation cartoon in the 70s, you know, and it sort of fizzled. But this movie, it's a cool big like last hurrah for the character to me.
Right.
I got all these like the figure, like we all have that quick draw figure, and all that cool stuff, but it's unfortunate that it hasn't survived past that. I mean, niche stuff like the reprints, but beyond that, like things. I know there's the Dynamite comics, but
yep, and there's some of them are pretty neat, and he's teamed up with guys and stuff. He teams up with Batman and all that.
Yeah.
Okay. Saying there shouldn't be a costume is like a sin. Sean, so that you're gonna have to go to confession.
I said they were meshing the two.
I know.
I said they should do the magazine version.
No. But then the second sin is there should be no powers. So you can't win.
Powers.
There needs to be powers and costume.
No, I know, but it doesn't make sense. Like if they downplayed the invisibility thing and did what Shimon Khan was doing. With the costume, like I get it, they were trying to mesh the two. You
gotta have the look of the thing.
The reason why you had a costume in the magazines was for those covers, and the reason why you had the invisibility powers in the radio show was to write better, like write easier, so that he can just like sneak up on guys.
Right. The radio show is radio show is the fake version. It really, right? Like theoretically, that's the fake. Because
but
you
it's
added
the most prolific version,
right? So this is the same issues we had with Dick Tracy. You've got a heavy decision to make if you're the company or whatever, and you're like, because if he doesn't have the red scarf covering up and the weird nose and the crooked nose and
then he's not the Shadow.
And then he's not the Shadow.
Visually, he's not the Shadow.
He's not the Shadow. And I definitely as a kid, I still would have thought it was cool. But I would have been like, it doesn't look like Shadow from what I know. Now, radio show, right? If he's invisible, why does he need any costume?
He never had a costume in the
radio it's show. Just and actually, if you buy those radio shows, it's just like, you know, whoever the actor happens to be, like they just make and they don't have it as a costume on those covers of the CDs. but like I don't know, like I can't see a way out of it. Like if he's not clouding the minds of men, then he's also not the Shadow. So I don't. This is a Dick Tracy. There's more of a thing because there's so many villains and they waste them. In this one, and Clobby had the same. Like he would have. So Clobby would have wanted the magazine Shadow.
Yeah,
that's what he would have wanted. What you're like. So he doesn't like this movie for those reasons as well, right? It's like, well, this isn't the shit. But like, I don't know what to do. Like,
yeah. They did what any of us would have done. Try to mesh the two.
Mesh
right?
it. Yeah. Okay.
But
so hold on.
To me, emphasizing the invisibility thing doesn't work. Plus, he kind of sucks at it. Don't they shoot him while he's the Shadow? It's like, well,
they didn't make him invisible. They made him a Shadow, so you could technically attack the Shadow and then injure the guy. Okay, so Steven in next in line. You saw this in the theater, right?
Yep. So
what did you think?
So I went and saw this after my parents, which was something because in those days I saw everything before my parents did because I was off school. So I would just go to the theater, right?
Mm-hmm.
My dad was super excited to see this movie. I guess he listened to the old radio show. He didn't read the magazine, so he was not upset about the look or non-look or that. And he actually made my mother go. My mother didn't want to go, and she turned out to be a bigger fan of the movie than my dad was. Mm-hmm. So they both pumped me up for this one, and I saw it, and I thought it was like terrific. So yeah, I saw it in the theater, and I thought it was terrific. I pretty much loved it from beginning to end. Obviously, not knowing about, I knew the Shadow was a pulp character, but that meant nothing to me at 17 years old. Mm-hmm. So I was just sitting there watching the movie for what it was. I thought it was outstanding. I love that old, making period like comic book movies was always
I love that.
Right. So I thought this was great. Actually, knowing I was going on tonight allowed me to rewatch it again last night because any reason to rewatch The Shadow. And it still holds up for me. I mean, there is still, like, there's that whole scene where they're like, oh, you still need a beryllium spear? And I'm like, what the hell did he steal from Ian McKellen then if that wasn't what that was? But then, they're like, oh, Tim Curry has it. By the way, Tim Curry is the Swiss Army knife of actors. You can just put that guy in any role and it works. It's actually
he's
amazing.
Awesome.
This movie could have been a franchise. I'm actually surprised it didn't, because it is outstanding. Alec Baldwin is charismatic as a Shadow. Penelope Ann Miller is gorgeous. I liked her since Other People's Money, pretty much onward. So putting her in was great. And John Lone is such a killer villain. Like
he is killer.
So good as Shiwan Khan, and like just everything. Yeah, Kindergarten Cop. But the movie, and this movie has a who's of character actors. Every frigging role is a character actor who everyone knows. Like Ali Young's in it. James Hong's in it. Like the dad from Alf is in it. Like, my God,
Kubiak is in it from Parker Lewis Can't Lose.
Yeah. Like,
Gerald Okamura is in it. Like first.
Gerald.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm even in it. I was in it as a kid. I was in it.
Everyone is in this movie. Like, Peter Boyle is driving around Alec Baldwin. That is so good.
That is good. Yes. I like that guy. Yeah.
So like, it's a very, like, I guess you could say friendly movie where it's just like, it's got a lot of good vibes. It's got some good action. It's got a villain. I have no idea what his plot is. He wants to blow up the city, but he's also holding it for ransom. I have no idea what he's doing, but I don't care because it's not about that. It's about the Shadow's internal strife. He's fighting for, he's dealing with his past guilt, which I think was done great. I would actually I wouldn't have even minded a direct to DVD or direct to video sequel that sort of delved into what happened in those 7 years when he was training and what he went through there. I think that would have been a good sequel or prequel or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
I thought it was an awesome movie, man. I really enjoyed it. Watching it last night for like the 7th or 8th or 10th or 12th time. I forget. I've run out of time because I watched this movie quite a bit. I have no complaints about this movie. Any gripes I may have about it is you can dismiss it all. This movie's terrific for me. So.
I just want to point this out too before I didn't this stuff that Sean and I are talking about, this like deeper dive.
Yeah, sir.
I didn't know any of this. I know Shadow's got the red scarf. He looked like the Shadow. He's in shadows. He clouds men's minds and all that. I was like, okay, anything that I would have known offhand, this movie had. I would not have known, and I did not know that, well, they kind of retooled them a little bit here and there, and this isn't exactly this, and this isn't that. I don't know. So even when I went back to listen to radio shows after this movie, I pictured him in the scarf. Like the radio show never says, I'm not wearing a scarf. It doesn't say what he's wearing when he's the Shadow. He's just doing things. And my mind pictures this costume. So if you're listening to the radio shows from the beginning and you just thought, oh, the Shadow's a Shadow. But if you're looking at those pulps and seeing that cover, then the radio show would be the big, if there was Twitter, it'd be hashtag, not the real Shadow. There'd be like the big tags, like, this is not the real Shadow, or, they ruined the Shadow, or, you know what I mean? Like it would be this big whole thing that they ruined them.
That's my thing. Is they're so different. Like you know that in the magazine, he's not
Lamont
Cranston.
I know he's not Lamont
it's
Cranston.
Kent Allard.
Yeah,
it's a completely different guy. It's like
I know.
So, I don't know. Anyway,
yeah, it's not I know, and Clobby didn't like that either, and he's like, well, it's not the guy. I'm like, I know, but but okay. We'll get to Charlie. We'll get to Ross, and then we can go circle back. But like, I'm just saying, keep in mind, what was that show? Remember that show? What Would You Do with John Quinones or whatever? And they would say WWYD. So in your head, think of WWYD. You're handed the Shadow. What are you going to do? Okay, Charlie. So you saw this on home video. What did you think?
I saw this on home video. Before I say that, though, I have to point out something right now in this whole discussion. You guys do realize what we're defending right now is what we're fighting against in movies that come out now when they fuck with their superheroes.
Yes.
And they're like, no, that's not what they do. That you read in this issue and it never happened.
Right.
But yet we're defending something that we didn't even know about 50 years prior. And I find it hilarious. I really do.
I will circle back to that though.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure
that's a good point.
That out because I thought it was funny. So yeah, I am 100% with J-Man on this. When we were talking about what to pick, I was championing for us to do this movie because I adore it. But it also fit with a lot of movies we've been doing on this series. Judge Dredd, Dick Tracy, Zorro, all of these things that I had no prior knowledge of until I got to watch the movie. The Shadow, this was my Shadow. He had the powers. Of course, he's got shadow powers. He's called the Shadow.
Right.
Spider-Man has spider powers. He's Spider-Man.
Right.
So he's the Shadow.
Wait a minute. What about the Spider? The Spider doesn't have spider powers.
But he does. Nobody knows who the Spider. We're gonna talk.
The Spider was.
And we're gonna 2 points. Let's remember this. Charlie's point about how we behave now with comic book accuracy, and also the Spider. We're gonna talk about both those. But continue on.
Yeah. No. So. This was my introduction to it. My dad had some knowledge of the Shadow, but I don't think he was into it as much as, say, like the Green Hornet, because he loved the Green Hornet. But this was immediate. It came out for rental that weekend, Friday night. Boom, we had the Shadow in our hands, and I loved this movie. My dad loved this movie. He's like, this is great, visually striking. This had like feels of, Batman. Tim brain just went numb. Tim Burton feels that gothic kind of look to the city, especially the night shots. The Monolith Hotel is probably one of my favorite visuals from the movie. Alec Baldwin killed it. I love the voice of the Shadow, the laugh, everything he did. This movie was just flat out fun for me, which is what all of these were. The Dick Tracy's, the Phantoms, all that were just fun. And I had a ball with them. And then I wanted to know more. The problem with the Shadow, and you guys touched on it, is I didn't have access to it.
Yeah.
There was nowhere to just go down to my comic shop. They maybe had some of the DCs, but rarely would they even have them. The radio shows may have been out available on like records or cassettes, but not easily accessible. We didn't have internet. We didn't have all this other stuff. You had to know someone that had them or could order them. So I didn't even get the toys. Like I knew they were out there, but I didn't get any of them. They didn't even get in our area. So I had this movie. This movie's really been my only outlet for the Shadow until I got older with the internet and I could look up. And now every once in a while on Spotify, when I'm listening to my radio shows, a Shadow one will pop up in my rotation. And it just a big smile comes over my face. I don't care what powers, what he looks like. I see Alec Baldwin in that radio show doing all the Shadow stuff. That's what I visualize now. But I adore it. I have zero hate for this whatsoever. If anything, it's probably added a fan, with me being into the Shadow stuff. And I don't care about the powers mixed up from magazine. And that's not denying that Sean can't be like that. I get it if you grew up with it, which is what we'll talk about later. But I really, really enjoy this movie for sure.
Yeah. And here's Bob Kane ripping off the Shadow, like literally drawing over top of
He admitted it. He admitted it.
Yeah, he's flat out come out and said, it's a huge, not only Zorro, but it's also Shadow.
It's an influence. No, that looks like tracing.
Well, he did that for a lot of different. There's a whole website about this.
Yeah, there's a whole thing. So we're not gonna. Okay.
Yeah. Before you continue, I wanted to make this point.
Mm-hmm.
When I was watching the movie, this came over me. If I close my eyes, it felt like a radio play with some of the lines when he's talking, and especially with the voices that they use.
Yeah, they make
there's very deep and very magnetic. It's like I felt like it was like especially at that line. One of the lines is like Shiwan Khan has hypnotized the entire city. I almost feel like there could have been a da 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 or something like that.
Yeah,
right.
And the announcer or narrator is telling you what is happening. When they break out into ads in the dialogue, the whole thing with Brooks Brothers, that is a literal ad from the radio show that it would just break in and you'd be like, make sure you shop at Brooks Brothers at whatever and ever street. That is in the movie and I love it.
Blue Coal is the one if you listen to Blue Beetle is like Blue Coal.
Blue Coal was making a lot of those.
Just Joe is here, super friend. Just Joe, thanks, buddy.
Mama Cigarettes billboard is Marlboro cigarettes.
Marlboro, yeah.
And it has the smoking dude.
It has
rings.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love it.
That is awesome. Yeah, and Margot Penelope Ann Miller, she smokes, which is awesome. I'm tired of this no smoking. I just watched Blood and Black Lace for a stream I'm going to be on Tuesday. I've seen it many times, and all of the women smoke in it, and it's awesome. Okay, Ross. So we know you saw this in the theater because you see everything in the theater. What were your thoughts going? And did you have any problems when you saw it?
No, I'm actually kind of the opposite of you guys in some respects. And first of all, I'm going to just say I've put off seeing this movie for a long time again because at the time it came out, I was and am a huge Shadow fan. I had read. I don't have like all the pulps or. I don't have any of the pulps. I'm like you, J-Man. I just had the reprints or
that's reprints that I had.
Yeah, I had at that time. I had mass market paperbacks.
Oh yeah, yep. I know what you're talking
Franco
about.
covers. So I had those. I had the entire run of the Shadow Strikes, which was DC's best pulp version of the Shadow ever. I had the Kyle Baker. I had the Howard Chaykin modernish reboots of them. I was in it. I bought the CD of the soundtrack. I bought the Starlog souvenir magazine. I had a book called Gangland's Doom, which is like an academic overview of the Shadow. I have the Shadow scrapbook. I had the dagger. Um, I have a couple more of the toys that I didn't bother to drag out. I had a T-shirt from the movie that I was able to wear at work because it's book based. At the bookstore, you can wear a T-shirt if it's based on the book. So I got Zorro and that one, and
Right.
Doc Savage and a few others. So I was in it, and like I played that soundtrack is 10 out of 10. Even the Taylor Dane song, it was written by the guy who wrote a bunch of Meatloaf songs, and oh my god, it sounds like a Meatloaf song if you think about it. So yeah.
Less cocaine in the Shadow, guaranteed.
I don't know.
I love Highlander 2.
I don't know. I wouldn't make that claim.
I love Highlander 2 though.
Highlander 2 was funded by cocaine.
So you put Highlander 2 aside, he also directed the first Highlander and a bunch of Duran Duran music videos. So and Razorback movie. I was like, this is the director for me.
Razorback is great. I've got the special edition 4K of that on pre-order.
What, Razorback?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you do. So
got to replace my shitty DVD of it.
So I was all in, and I even joined the Shadow fan club.
Oh my god!
And I got the little Cloistone pins that said "The weed of crime bears bitter fruit." So I was in it, and I saw the movie, and I loved it. My standard was if there's like 20 minutes on screen of the Shadow doing Shadow stuff, I'm fine. It doesn't matter the plot, anything else. It doesn't have to hold together as a film. Same standards as the Judge Dredd movie. I was just like, he also did that. He did a bunch of other cool stuff too.
These are all good. Awesome. Ricochet. Yeah, that was all right. Yeah, Real McCoy's awesome. Shadow's awesome. Silent Trigger's awesome.
Silent Trigger's freaking awesome.
Great.
This is awesome.
Yeah,
no, that was one of my favorite Resident Evil movies.
Yeah. What do you? I don't listen, Joe. I'm gonna. Joe, what's going on here? I gotta give you the slap here, buddy.
What?
Extinction is 3, right?
Yes, 3.
Yeah, that's the best one.
It's the best one. It's the Vegas.
Yeah, it's got more zombies in it than anything.
Yeah, that's good.
Silent Trigger is a great Dolph Lundgren movie if you like Dolph Lundgren.
It's a fantastic.
That's a great movie.
Yeah, I love Silent.
Okay, so Ross, that's for you. What's your favorite book? But we'll get to that. Okay, so you bought everything. You became the Shadow, and then you went out and you fought crime.
So I saw the movie, and then I saw it like a bunch of times in the theater because there was like this huge pause between the theatrical run and the VHS release.
Oh yeah, like a year usually.
And I mean, I watched the Shadow again right now on my DVD. I never bothered to upgrade it to Blu-ray. I may have to change that because it looks like dog shit on DVD.
Yeah, it's good on Blu-ray
on a modern TV. So, and then I watched. Have you seen that thing where they took like some clips from the Shadow and put them in black and white?
Yeah, I saw it. I was just bringing that up.
Yeah, that look. So I watched some other reviews, and just to say like because I had some feelings about it while I was watching it again for the first time in a long time, and I was like, okay, now I can see why the normies didn't like it, and I'll go over some of those things, and it'll address some of the things like you guys said.
Yeah.
Also, the only other thing I got going in the background, story about it, is I knew a guy. One of my customers at the bookstore was doing a lot of storyboards for movies, and he worked on Mars Attacks, and he worked on the Roger Corman Fantastic Four movie, and he did some stuff for Full Moon, and so he knew all these people, and he said, well, behind the scenes on this, and he loves these pulp movies too. And well, he loves the pulps, but he doesn't necessarily love the movies because he's older and closer to like the original versions as they were coming out way back in the day. So his take was that they were part of the reason this movie cost a fortune for the time was because they actually filmed every scene, like almost every scene twice, and just went with whatever worked best. So there would be like the serious Shadow scene, and then there would be the one where they're talking about Brooks Brothers Ty, or he'll be like, and you are a maniac. These like weird comedic takes that suddenly like break in periodically, or John Lone is like this great villain, and then he just goes off the rails, and a lot of Ian McKellen being the absent-minded professor type stuff, and pretty much everything, every mug that Tim Curry pulled, every face Tim Curry pulled in that. Now, that was the other thing. You're talking about the character actors. I loved Tim Curry from Rocky Horror. I was a huge Rocky Horror Picture Show fan. I went to see Annie in the theater because Tim Curry was in it. He only has like 10 minutes of screen time, but I was there for it. So in this movie, I don't even know if his role was even that important. They should have decided whether to go with Ian McKellen and make him this guy, or make him the scientist that builds the beryllium sphere. It's too, you almost have too many characters, and a lot of the, so okay, so going back to your comments about the shadow and the costume and all that, if you didn't go in, like I went in like knowing everything about the shadow, so every Easter egg, there's a blue coal sign that's in the background just as the cab's going to get blown up, right? I mean, there's like Easter eggs. Ahoy! The Cobalt Club doesn't even have to be in the movie, but they built this like gigantic, amazing, beautiful set because it's in the pulp. So it's kind of like he goes in, he talks to Jonathan Winters. Most of his conversations with Jonathan Winters are even like unnecessary, unless you know Jonathan Winters was like one of the funniest. He's like the guy who influenced Robin Williams.
Yep.
And there was an interview with Alec Baldwin. He said that when they were on the set together, they had to have a bell to stop them from doing shtick. And then Alec Baldwin would launch into this like perfect impression of Jonathan Winters going like, "So we're going to go, we're doing the thing, aren't we?" And like Jonathan Winters, you expect him to be funny, and he's like, he's not funny. He's just like weirdly not that serious in his role in this movie, which kind of stands out. Like, so if you were a kid and you didn't know who Jonathan Winters was, it's kind of like, what's with this guy? And then the Shadows, even the Shadows' powers, it's like, why does Alec Baldwin turn into this kind of like rubbery face character? And it's like, well, it's because he's got to look like the guy on the cover of the pulp magazines. But he doesn't really, because the Howard Chaykin character in the Howard Chaykin comics looks like a Howard Chaykin drawing, like all the Howard. He looks like American Flag. He looks like that space character he did for Atlas Comics. He looks like, every Howard Chaykin character. So they could have just made him Alec Baldwin, keep the hat, keep the scarf, keep the cape, keep the black suit, but just don't put the rubbery face. Because like if you're a normie, it's like, why does that even happen? And there's an inconsistency when they do the contact lenses. It's like sometimes the eyes are red, sometimes they're silver, but it wasn't like, okay, they're silver when he's clouding men's minds, but they're red when he's doing some other power. It was just kind of like both of them, Shiwan Khan and the Shadow, they kind of had this like random eye color change whenever they're using powers or they're surprised or whatever.
Right. His face morphs. It's supposed to be he's tapping into his dark side,
his
so
shadow,
that's the dark.
They never really say that, and they never really, and it just looks. Now the rubbery face looks weirder and worse with the DVD resolution and with the Blu-ray resolution. But even there's a few of the special effects that look a lot worse now because special effects advanced, and also because of the higher resolution. Like all that like wavy stuff when he appears in the tank and the water's surrounding him and the water just goes and he becomes like he appears, or when they're looking at the bulletin board with the smoking person and it's like and becomes Shiwan Khan. That didn't come across as bad then as it does now. But
okay, so if you had to choose though, and you're like, okay, you have to have this magazine cover, because like the Spider has the spider on the cover, which is different than how they describe the Spider's mask and stuff in the actual pulp, which is different than in the serials where they had that webbing over him. And then Dynamite used the webbing version, but now Miles Morales has stolen the Spider's pulp look.
Yeah.
So now they can't go back to that. So the spider has like 45 different looks now, and no, it's just like for me to do anything with the spider, I have to type Richard Wentworth, or else it's not going to show up. It's like,
right.
So that the spider's even worse. If you think the shadow's effed up, the spider's even worse.
No, I don't. Okay, so the short answer for the shadow is, they made such a big deal about. First of all, Alec Baldwin is like really, really handsome when they made this movie, and they were trying to push those two as like this Spencer Tracy, Hepburn kind of couple, and he looks like Cary Grant when he's wearing the tuxedo. And yes, except for the fact, like, there's a couple of shots when they like gelled the lens over for reasons I don't understand, and put like bright lipstick on him, and he looks a little adamanty. He looks like adamant with the pretty boy makeup, but he's really handsome. They and that's a selling point for the movie. Him being handsome is more of a selling point than putting the rubbery appliances on to make him look like the shadow. So I think they should have kept the costume from the cover of the pulp magazines, have it be Alec Baldwin a la the Howard Chaykin run of the comics, and you could keep it comic accurate too. And those would be the two shadows you get. The only
so then
two.
Is he just a double gun shooting investigator, or is he a clouding the men's minds invisible shadow guy?
Well, that was the problem with the the time that it came out, was they were trying to make it like a kid friendly PG franchise. So he only ever uses his guns really to shoot the block out from the Asian doctor's feet.
Right.
And he shoots, they do the old Lone Ranger thing, like he fires the gun and you see the Mongol guy fall over, but there's no like, there's a scene in the comic book adaptation that I've got here where he's in the hotel and there's like a whole line of those Mongol guards like going down a hallway. And so he pulls out the guns, does this, and just runs down the hallway between them all, going bah, 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 and like blood's all over the place. And then I'm like, fuck, that's the shadow I want to see, you know. But
so no invisibility or whatever.
I don't. If there's invisibility, it's because he should have it so some people can see him and some people can't. But they were trying so hard to make a franchise out of it. They didn't concentrate on the story. They didn't concentrate on the characters. It's a movie with like tons of things to love, and I'm grateful to have been able to see those bits and pieces play out in a multi-million-dollar movie and have it look cool. But I'm also like, I wish the story had tied together so normies would have enjoyed it as much as I would have enjoyed it. Because I don't think the romance between the two, having her be a ditz, I don't think that completely worked. There are times when he's like a scary dude, and then there's other times where he's like kind of acting like Alec Baldwin level goofy. There's like too many characters. There's scenes that go on too long, like when the doctor's out there like looking at this guy smoking, that plays so slow. There's when Peter Boyle gets his message through the mailbox and he's got to look at it, and he gets up and he walks like an old man. Bends over real slow.
Right.
You know, kids then and certainly kids now are not gonna, and they don't explain the whole thing about the dagger. It's kind of like they set up like, okay, there's this flying dagger in the beginning of the movie, but they don't set up that like he's got to overcome it. There's no scene where he's like training and fails to overcome it or whatever. And then you get to the end, and it's like Shiwan kind of like tells him like, "Oh, you never mastered the dagger," and it's like that whole thing like, oh, he uses the force, he basically relaxes himself, and then is able to at the last minute do it. And then the confrontation, it's like that typical 90s superhero movie thing where Batman's got to take off his mask, and it's Michael Keaton who defeats the villains.
Yeah, I don't like that either.
It's just Alec Baldwin in a trench coat. But again, if they had gone with that from the beginning, where it's like Alec Baldwin in a trench coat and the hat and the cape and the scarf, and just like the scarf drops away or something, and even maybe the hat, that would have been fine. That would have been cool. But it's like the whole rubbery face thing disappears. And it's like, why did he have it in the first place? So
I think that this is the same as the Phantom and Rocketeer and all these other ones. There was no kids weren't pumped up because there was no cartoon and stuff with it. Because I love it, like the age bracket that we're all the top four of us are roughly the same age. So we're seeing this, and I'm like, this is the damn best. I thought the Phantom was the best. I thought the Rocketeer was the best. I thought the Shadow was the best. I thought Batman was the best. I was like, this is the greatest. Like every one of these movies is awesome. I'll tell you, if he didn't have the scarf, I would have been like, this is not the Shadow,
right?
Yeah.
Because I'm a visual person first, right? Like it's like I need Batman in the costume. I had someone on. We're not going to turn this into Daredevil, but we were talking. I had RR on. We were doing the Batman and the Outsiders, and I was explaining to him because he was talking about the Daredevil show, and I said, "This is what I want," and I'll say this, and this is gonna. I'll say this. I'll say this, and then we'll go back. This is what I want. I want the hero in the costume all the time, fighting a supervillain. That's what I want for everything all the time. So now, if you think of that, keep that in your mind, and go back through what I like. It's like, okay, my favorite cartoon is Batman Brave and the Bold more than the animated series. Why? Well, because he's never Bruce Wayne. He's Batman all the time. He's always with another superhero and they're fighting someone all the time. That's the whole half an hour. Now you could say Super Friends is like that as well, but Brave and the Bold is just a better cartoon. Okay. Now I still like Batman, the animated series, obviously.
Right.
However, it's like, I like this one more. But if you're not going to have the guy in the costume fighting a supervillain, it better be damn good writing.
Right.
That's why the Netflix Daredevil series was okay. He didn't have the red costume. Sean knows. It's like, I'm like, oh, he's got the black costume. Oh, that's cool. That's from the Man Without Fear. That's cool. And then it's like episode 2. Episode 3, I'm like, Man Without Fear was only like 5 issues and they've passed this.
Right.
It's like black costume. Episode 5, black. I'm like, he's going to be Daredevil, right? Like, hello. Hey, Joe Dog, how's it going? I'm like, when is he going to be Daredevil? Now, however, I didn't hate it because the writing was still good. I like the 3 characters, Foggy, Karen, all of them together as a threesome, figuring stuff out. Kingpin was bloody, scary, right?
Yeah.
So superhero fan Jay wants the superhero all the time doing stuff. Secondary, if you can't do that because of whatever reason, it better be a damn good story. Mask of the Phantasm is the best Batman movie because of that. The story's great and there's a lot of great Batman stuff. So and I recently picked up the Nolan 4Ks because I never had those on 4K. Now I have everything on Batman on 4K. So I still love Batman Begins. To me, that's like a 10 out of 10 pretty much. It's like, and there's still, I played it yesterday just to see him. I didn't watch The Shadow for this stream. I actually watched Batman Begins. I don't know why I just thought, let me, Batman. It's about 50 minutes before like Batman really starts to do anything. And I started to think to myself, like, but that 15 minutes is actually pretty damn cool. And there's ninja in it, and he's learning sword fighting.
You don't mind and you don't miss it.
Because you miss it, right?
Right.
But with the Shadow, I found the blend to be pretty good. He could have been the Shadow a little bit more. The weird nose and stuff, yeah, I agree. Maybe it could have just been Alec Baldwin normally. But like, I need to have, because I want to have a figure, and I don't want an Alec Baldwin figure, right? Like I don't have a Bruce Wayne figure I don't have a Scott Summers figure. I don't have green like Oliver Queen or whatever, right? Like it's like I want this on my shelf, right? I don't want Alec Baldwin in a black tuxedo or whatever, and then that's the Shadow, right?
Well, you could have that figure and then just spin it so it's the Shadow's head. But it's a tiny little head because it's got to tuck into the torso.
Yeah, and so that's garbage. I do have a Superman like that up there where you compact him and you put him in Clark Kent's outfit and he can bust out
which
into.
Goes back to the problem that a lot of these '90s movies had, like the post Michael Keaton Batman movies had, was that they had to serve like way too many masters. So they had to serve the toy company masters,
right?
They had to serve the comic book and comic fan masters, but that was like one of the least of their concerns at that time, because the comic book community didn't have like a voice out of themselves. So there was no YouTube channels where you could reach hundreds and thousands of fans reviewing the movie and saying, well, why Daredevil is good or bad. It was just kind of like the comic book nerds. If they were happy in the comics store, that was like a good byproduct.
Right.
They worried about
They went off the numbers of the sales.
Right.
Are they selling good? Then they love the story.
Then they love it.
Alex
Yeah.
Now, wasn't that big of a star when he made this either. None of the like it was like the character actors around him and Penelope Ann Miller were better known than the two leads, I would dare say. So it was, and this was supposed to be the movie that made him a leading man star, and it kind of didn't. So they dozens of movies he made after the fact, right?
Right. So now what about? Hold on. So now what about the spider? We got the spirit. So the spider doesn't have any spider powers.
Right.
The spirit is not a spirit or whatever. Right. He's just a guy, right? They all have domino masks or whatever. So now the shadow, if we go by the books and we say, okay, he's just a pulp hero. He beats the shit out of guys, shoots them, whatever. That's why he's got guns, because he's got to take guys down. He doesn't even, if he has shadow powers, he doesn't even need weapons really, because he can just use shadow powers. So hold on. Let me ask the question. Hold on. So yes to the shadow powers or no to the shadow powers? And if you're saying no to the shadow powers, we'll go down the line, or we can go up the line if we want. If you say no to the shadow powers, then what do you say to someone who says, well, he doesn't even have shadow powers? Well, I don't get it. Like, the spirit isn't a spirit. I don't get it. So what do you say to that person? You just say you're an idiot, like, watch the movie and you'll see. So, okay. So Ross, what do you think? Powers or no powers in the movie?
Okay. I'll keep this brief because I have thoughts. So, number one, they didn't, in the movie, they never really established what those powers were. You kind of got a hint that, like, okay, he's becoming invisible. Is he clouding men's mind to make them think he's invisible, or is he like really invisible they never
no, he's hypnotizing them to so that they don't see him.
Right. Now that power served the medium of radio back when it was like a radio thing, but now that it's a visual film, you don't really need that. You don't want to just be panning the camera around at nothing because he's supposed to be invisible. And then the lameness of, okay, we can fire at the shadow on the wall, or we can see his footprints in the water or whatever. It's like, well, why is he invisible? It works to a degree, but there's ways around it. And I guess.
So then what do you say to someone who's like, well, I heard the radio shows, how come he's not invisible in the movie?
I would say that, the radio show probably had a lot more reach even at the time than the pulp magazines. Like most people, like most of the dads and grandpas who remembered the Shadow, that would have taken their kids to see that in the 90s.
Right, they know the radio show.
More from the radio show. So you have to.
So they're like, this isn't the Shadow to them, right? If he's not invisible.
You have to say the Shadow knows. You have to do you have to say the weed of crime bears bitter fruit. You have to do the slippery thing. You have to have Margot Lane in it because she really was she like a big deal in the pulps? Because
she was mostly in the radio show. They put her in the pulps towards the end.
Right. Okay, So
it's not the same.
You have to have Margot Lane in it, and there's some things you would have to have that could accommodate both. But as far as powers go, cloud men's minds, and then establish exactly what those are. And establish which of those powers and to what degree stronger or lesser Shiwan Khan has, so it's like a boxing match. When you start a boxing match, you know how much this guy weighs and what his victories are. You have to know what the stakes are to the fight, and they don't. They just kind of like, oh, he's Genghis Khan, but he's not really Genghis Khan. He's descended from Genghis. He has some of the Shadow's powers, but we don't know what. Why are like ancient Mongols from hundreds of years ago walking around New York City, or did he bring them back to life, or did he just find Chinese dudes that he dressed up in these costumes? What is this? So
I think he just hired a bunch of dudes.
He just hired a bunch of guys. Well,
that's my canon in my head.
He brainwashed that. He brainwashed them.
Yeah.
just like
they're Mongols. There you go.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, like okay,
You're a
so
Mongol,
Charlie, what do you?
You're a Mongol, and you're a
Yeah,
Mongol.
You're a
you're a
Mongol.
Mongol.
So that's he's about equality. Okay, Charlie, what do you? So I mean, what do you think? So you didn't know, you wouldn't have known anything because I wasn't
wouldn't know anything.
confused. Like when I saw this movie, I wasn't confused about any of the things that we're talking about. I'm like, yeah, because Margot sees him and he can't cloud her mind, so
Right.
he's not actually turning invisible like Griffin or something from Invisible Man. He's just making you think things, and it's like oh, you don't need to. It's like, I see you. It's like, why would I do that?
Yeah.
It's like, don't tell your father. Why wouldn't I? It's like,
Well,
oh wait,
they pretty much tell us that because he's leaving impressions of himself walking through the water, moving something around. I feel like he is, because Shin Khan is doing that to other people too. He has blocked the entire city from seeing the monolith.
Yep.
He is controlling people from not seeing something that is actually there and has been there the entire time. He made them forget. He made them do all this. I look at it like this. In my mind, he obviously has to have powers, because otherwise he's just a dude with a couple of guns. Why is he a superhero to me? Why is he good at what he does aside from someone else with guns? I actually like the fact that he barely uses the guns in here and relies more on his influence with the power that he has over men's minds. And I think in my mind, because I have no predication to the old stuff whatsoever, going in new, I took it as there's a good side, a dark side. He's tapped into a little bit of both because he was an evil man, which has always been one of the things as a kid going, wow, this guy was a really, really bad dude. And now he's like, he's a good guy. Like,
Yeah.
For a little bit, it's kind of like, how am I supposed to root for this guy when I know what he's done? And, he kind of beats himself up. I do hate that they never got a chance to film the end that they had planned. There was an earthquake during filming, and it destroyed that mirror set that was way larger, and they couldn't pay to do it. And it was supposed to be Khan fucking with him, showing him all of his past atrocities, all the horrible stuff he had done. It was supposed to really start messing with Lamont's mind, and they couldn't do it. So it was just, we ended up with that, not, glass in the forehead moment. But no, to me, I got to have the powers to stay in the movie. Interested in the movie, because Batman doesn't have powers, but he has gadgets. He's got these cool things. He's got an outfit. He's got a gimmick. He's got a car, all this other stuff. If the Shadow doesn't have the shadow powers and the mind control powers, he's a guy that knows a bunch of dudes, and they use bank teller tubes to talk to each other. I love that.
The radio show and the pulps were like, they were detective stories. I mean, it was like him.
Yeah.
Right.
He was.
But how do you get a 14 or 15-year-old though to be interested in that though? Because they kind of tried it with Dick Tracy, and it didn't really go anywhere. It's very much
have him shoot the hell out of everybody.
Yeah, he kills everyone at the beginning to get the kids hooked, and they won't leave the theater because they're like, how many more are we going to kill in this?
Well, no, you just go full John Woo every time that there's a fight scene.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but it's not going to play. They won't be able to sell toys.
Right.
This is the Joel Schumacher conundrum here.
It is.
It's like, Joel, make this, or we're going to just fire your ass and get someone else to make it.
Yeah.
And what do you do, right?
Give us something sellable. That's what all this is.
Yeah.
Give us something sellable.
I can't think of a way out of this. Like, this is why I'm asking this.
I think this is a true conundrum that we're in. Is there is no right answer?
The answer is this movie. I think the answer is
100%. I agree.
No, all I'm saying, I think it's a valiant effort. I see why he's turning invisible and why he has the costume too much, because I know it's because they had to have a costume to sell in magazines, so that's why that costume's there.
Right.
And they had to have him turn invisible in the radio show to push him through more stories. It was just
make it easier to tell that
contrivance.
story.
Easier to tell those stories.
Yeah.
How is he sneaking up on people? It's like, so he clouds men's minds. But then to take those things that were born out of two different mediums and mash them into one thing in this movie is awkward to me. To you guys, it isn't.
Oh yeah.
But like it just seems weird to me. Just put into stark relief in a film like this, right? So
Yeah,
And
I'm not.
I think you're 100% right. I get your end of it, Sean, and that's why there has to be a distinction of someone that knows the history like you do
Right.
and has
Yeah.
read it and lived it, and you got people like me and J-Man who kind of knew about the shadow a little bit. We had a picture in our mind, and we watched this movie, and we go, "Yep, that's it."
Yep, that's exactly what I thought. I'm like, yeah, that's the shadow. It looks like him. He clouds men's minds. He does all this shit. And the radio show, the whole reason for the radio show is that we know you're talking everything out. And I made 5 episodes of a radio show with Sean and Steven, which I had to take down from YouTube because they copyright struck me, even though I had permission to use the sound effects and music. Anywho, if you ever want that radio show, Ross, I'll put it on. You can listen to it. And when you're doing the radio shows, it's like you have to explain stuff. So it's easier if he's just a voice like, hello. It's like, whoa, who's that? It's like, it's the shadow.
Yeah.
Oh my God, right? Versus like saying, otherwise the whole thing is just going to be an audiobook. The shadow sneaks up behind the men who are unaware that he's hiding behind the crate. As
He's
the shadow
wearing
listens.
a black coat and a red scarf.
Right.
And his nose
Yeah.
is slightly elongated, and he has 2.
Well, he wouldn't have
pistols
that
at
in
his side.
the, yeah, well, he wouldn't have had that in
radio
the
show.
in the
That's
radio.
what I'm
He,
saying. If you wanted to give him a costume, that's what you have to do
You have
every
to-
time he's the
yeah, it'd
shadow.
be weird. Right.
Yeah.
It'd be weird.
I've got some of those Orson Welles radio shows, and they're
I think
literally
I've
like,
got them all.
well, I'm just going to light this cigarette and put it in my mouth.
You have to
Yeah.
talk.
Why don't
every
you have a
moment.
seat in that chair over there across the room?
Right. Yeah, you
As it-
explain everything.
As it looks
Yeah.
out across the front window of my house across the city, because somehow that's relevant to the story I'm getting ready to
Right.
tell.
My
Yeah.
favorite is the Filmation Superman cartoons. You can totally like watch them, just like not watch them and just listen to them and get exactly what's going on. Like
Yeah.
they say, it's like there's a monster breathing fire. Like it's
Yeah.
written like a radio program.
Yeah. What are you doing with that gun? You're trying to. It's like because nobody says I'm gonna
shoot
shoot.
off my chest. Like
Yeah,
I'll
I
use
mean,
my heat vision now to disable the gun.
Right,
It's
right.
all of that. Yeah.
that's well. So you actually,
that's the Superman show.
yeah. So I mean, and the radio show that I did is awesome. I copied that. It's exact. I copied it beautifully, exactly, and it's like, oh no, and it's like, what's gonna happen? Okay, so Steve, I forgot. Did you know much? Okay, you knew the Shadow was a pulp character. You said that didn't really mean anything to you.
Yep.
Did you know what he looked like? Like
Nope.
when you,
I
sorry?
knew nothing.
Oh, you knew nothing. Okay. So now knowing nothing, this is interesting. Since you had zero knowledge, were you kind of like, well, why is this happening? Like, I feel like we're overthinking it because we knew stuff. But I didn't know, again, I didn't know till after the fact. And after the fact, it didn't matter because when I listen to the radio show, even right now, I see the shadow. I see
this guy.
I see this guy. I'm not thinking, oh, he's not really wearing that in this iteration. Anyways. So Steve, what did you think?
I was fine with it. I wasn't confused or anything. I understood exactly what was going on, and I would have been fine. So this is a bit of maybe a cop out, but I would have been fine either way, depending on how the story presented itself. Because the story presented itself as this otherworldly. It starts off, he can't even see the temple, and then the clouds, move away, or the mist moves away or whatever, and then the temple's there. I'm like, okay, this is going to be otherworldly. He's going to have powers, blah blah blah. So when he had powers, if they had kept it just a gritty street level period hero, like a bit more like like
Punisher or something, or Vigilante.
Yeah, Punisher or something. Obviously on a less R-rated scale.
Right.
That would have thrown me. I would have been fine with it because I knew nothing. So I was whatever you want to present with me, I could go with as long as it made sense and it was cool. And to me, it made sense. It was cool. I totally was intrigued by his duality, and they play it up through the entire movie where he's literally taps into his evil and he can't forgive himself, but that evil is what makes him what he is. So I was good either way. So the powers didn't bother me. If they didn't give me powers, I didn't know enough to complain about it. So I would have been fine with that as long as the story made sense.
Hey, Masquerado. I would have been good either way too. If he would have had the costume and no powers, I'd still be like, well, he looks cool and he's fighting bad guys and he's got 2 guns. And if he had the powers and no costume, I would have been like, this is an interesting movie with a guy who's got these cool shadow powers and he's fighting Shiwan Khan. That's kind of neat.
Yeah.
But I think it's neater to have both.
Yeah,
That's where I'm coming from. It's just neater to have both. And I don't think it would have worked if they would have done it column A or whatever, option A. Here's the uniform, double guns. He's investigating stuff as a regular guy. He sneaks around at night, shoots the bad guys, no shadow powers. That's A movie. And then B movie it's just Alec Baldwin. He maybe puts the collar up a little bit, puts the hat a little bit lower, so he's kind of more incognito a little bit, fighting the guys and beating them up. But he's got shadow powers and he can move around. And oh my God, where is he? And then no red scar for any of that stuff. That would have been, hold on. I don't think either movie would have done any better than this movie did anyways. I don't think it would have mattered.
I think I'll just say this because I kind of used my term before, but I'll say this I think this is the obvious way to go is have the powers. This is the first time on screen that he had the powers. In all the other in this serial, 15 chapter serial, he's in the costume with the two guns and he punches guys and he fights guys and he solves a crime. It's the magazine version basically. I mean, Margot Lane's in it and I think he's a scientist or something as Lamont Cranston. I don't know.
It's weird.
But the shadow is that guy there and he doesn't have the powers and whatever. They made 3 movies which were about 60 minutes long, which suck. It's like he's barely in the costume. It's like the second 2 movies don't even have the shadow in the title, so it's so weird. So this is the first time they're like, you know what, let's do it with the powers. He's got the costume and all that stuff. And I'm just saying, in hindsight, I wouldn't do that, but I understand why they did it. It's like we're going big with this. It's a big budget movie. All these guys are in it. It's like he's gonna have the powers for the first time on screen. It's gonna be awesome. Let's realize that. Let's put stupid Foley over it, and have the big costume and all that stuff, and make it look like the comics. It's gonna be great. But the thing is, I'm saying in hindsight, I mean, I'm looking at a movie now that was sort of a failed franchise, right? And we wouldn't have known that back then. In hindsight, I would be like, well, if you're gonna take the villain from because he fought this dude Shiwan Khan multiple times in the magazine. Maybe just do a straight adaptation of one of those stories or something like that. Now I would have probably waited 10 years and done something like that 10 years later. I don't know what's going on with the rights for this thing. We haven't seen a shadow anything for a while, so I don't know. But my answer would be I'd probably do this movie where he has both things. I'm just saying I see the awkwardness of it. And,
right.
Yeah. Well, here's my thing. My take is, okay, so I did go back afterwards and read some of the Spider pulps, the reprints, obviously not the originals.
The Spider or Shadow?
Shadow. Sorry.
Okay, Shadow. Sorry, because I had Spider on the screen.
Yeah, Spider. So I did
Shadow
go back and read some of the reprints after I watched the movie. And of course, in the reprints, he doesn't have the powers, right? He has to look. He's Kirk Howard and all that.
Yeah.
I was initially thrown off they didn't have the powers, but I was fine with it. Because, it didn't make me diminish the movie. It didn't make me diminish the story.
Yeah.
I think...
Well, I'll say this one last thing. When I was listening to the radio show, I was actually disappointed that I realized one day, I don't think he has the costume in the radio show. I think he's just Lamont Cranston walking around. And I was like, oh, I don't... That
is what it is, and it sucks, so now I pretend he has it.
I was disappointed by that.
But when they would promote the radio show, they'd show the guy in the costume, too.
Yeah,
so
that's not what it is in the show.
It's whatever you want it to be.
Yeah.
But I think the problem, I don't think the question is whether the powers, the 2 different powers work together or not. The question is that these were originally mystery stories, and the mystery story that they chose to tell in this film and the way they told it is terrible. So, and I love the movie because there's everything but the core story is what I wanted to see in the Shadow movie.
Mm-hmm.
But as a mystery, it's just kind of
well, it's not even a mystery. If you look at it,
across the street, and she goes, "Oh, you said beryllium, and that's the thing that this creepy
Right.
Tim
Yeah.
Curry character is doing with my dad.
Beryllium,
And I have-
baloney.
Okay. All right. So Stephen, finish your point, and then we could talk about. We'll go on to a similar topic.
So it's interesting. I completely understand what Ross is saying, and the thing is to me is that they were trying to jam a lot into this movie. They were trying to jam an entire 7 years of transition of this character from an evil character to a good character, plus throw in a real, present day, back then plot, and introduce the Margot Lang character and all this, and trying to establish how this shadow operates. And they're doing it in a way that, let's face it, if this movie was done, it wouldn't even be a movie. It'd have to be like 3 or 4 parts for them to get through this.
Yeah.
To do it in 108 minutes, there's going to be some gaps, and I completely understand that. For me, I'm willing to give this one a pass, more so because I was just intrigued with the world that they created, with the characters that they put in there, and I would have liked to have seen more of it. I would have liked to have seen where they went with it, but unfortunately we didn't get that, so I'm just going to have to just stay with this really good movie that I love, and that's it.
Okay, so that was well said. Now with Batman is also detective.
Yep.
But they never really have him doing anything detective in movies. And I think the Shadow, you're in this position where you're like, okay, he's the Shadow. Everyone knows the radio show and the magazines. Not many people they're probably thinking not many people read these magazines. But they're probably thinking more people know radio show than magazines. Mm-hmm. Then they're thinking, so he's got to have the clouding the men's minds and being invisible. He has to. Yep. And they're like, well, what's Alec Baldwin's costume? Well, it's going to have to be the cover. So I think we all agree that they're stuck with that. Now, the Charlie point of today, well, why doesn't he like this and like this, like this? This movie didn't have any options, because if you went with one option, people are going to be like, well, this isn't the Shadow. There's 2 distinct shadows at the same time. And the Spider has 3 within the, okay, so he on the cover, he's got the domino mask, because they can't have the fright mask with the fright wig and the teeth, because they thought that was too scary for people in late 30s or whatever. So the Spider has the domino mask, he's got a tuxedo and his hat and all that, and you're like, well, that's not how they describe it. Well, in the first few, he doesn't even have a costume. They don't really describe him till later, and when they describe him, it's not that picture. Then when they did the serial, they gave him that webbing thing. And all of a sudden, that webbing thing, it's like, well, now people have visually seen this guy this way. They've visually seen him a different way on the pulps. You're like, okay, what the hell? What is this character? And then Dynamite's got their version, which is they basically took the serials and made it red webbing. With Batman, he's versatile. He can fight different things. He can be a detective. He can fight supernatural stuff, whatever. He can fight aliens. So it's like, you can do more with that guy. But when we get to guys where it's like, well, this isn't the real Daredevil and all that, there isn't 100 Daredevils. There is basically just one who evolved over time. And yes, he's been around for decades. Same with Batman. When you have characters who are 60 to 90 years, old, it's difficult, but you try to pinpoint what you're going for.
Yeah.
And when you've got the Shadow and there's 2 completely different things that aren't meshing, and the radio show did it because they had to do it and they had no other choice, because it'd be too hard to have them, whatever. If you do a detective story with Alec Baldwin, I mean, you're sitting there, it's like, yeah, but the guy could just be invisible. Like he shouldn't be able to solve this in 5 minutes. Like what detective story can't he solve if he's got clouding men? He could literally go up to, I suspect him to be a villain. Are you the villain? Yes, I am. Got him. That's why it's Shiwan Khan, because his powers are better, because even the Shadow didn't see the hidden building until he really thought about it. He's like, something is off here. It's like, oh fuck, there's a thing right here. Oh, and then he's like, I love that he's impressed, which is just a random funny movie thing. He's like, oh my god, look, can you see it? He did it to the whole.
He actually did it. Yeah,
he actually did it. He's like, I like that he's excited about the villain doing it.
Yeah.
Which is funny. So like, it's like, right. So it's like. It's a difficult, like, I don't know. I don't think modern comics, hold on, one last thing. I don't think modern movie makers have this problem. Like, if someone's saying make a Daredevil movie, I don't think they have these Shadow problems or these Dick Tracy problems where there's 4 million villains, they don't know what to do with them. and they can't guarantee a 6-picture deal or whatever. They're just like, well, it might just be one movie and then we're screwed or whatever. And they don't have Warren Beatty's ego, and they don't have Shadow, like, well, shit, there's like 2 different Shadow. Like little Timmy here says if there's no scarf, he's saying F this movie. And then and then Bobby Joe here saying, well, he better turn invisible because I listen to that radio show every night and he turned invisible. And then the other kid's like, well, Timmy's like, oh, you didn't read shit. You listen to the radio show because you can't read. It's like, I read books, and in the books he didn't have all this shit, right? And this is so now they're like, how are we going to please Timmy and Bobby? Like something's this is like one character. It's like Incredible Hulk. Why can't you get it right? It's not that bad.
Right, yeah.
Sean, go ahead.
So I was gonna veer this in another direction. Do you know the Dark Man connection?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
I don't know the Dark
Sam
Man.
Raimi pitched for this because they had the rights to season 2.
Yeah.
And they didn't like his pitch, but they said, go develop it as a separate movie, and it became Dark Man. And you could totally see that.
Yes.
And you could see that the Sam Raimi version of the Shadow would have been more closer to the magazine in that he dons disguises and stuff like that. But this is a different take, obviously. That he needs to don the disguises to like cover his face and all that stuff. But
okay, so real quick, Dark, which film? And we're not talking about the other movies, just Darkman 1 and Shadow Part 1, or there's only Part 1. What's better, Darkman or Shadow, Sean? Which one do you like more? Or which one do you think's better?
Darkman is better. Shadow is funner.
Okay, Steven? Oh, this is a tough one. You think this? You didn't prepare for this on a leisurely Sunday evening.
I know.
You're like, oh shit, this guy. Well, thanks, Sean. That's a Sean.
Yeah, Sean had to do it. Sean had to pull a trigger on.
I was gonna bring it up later. I'm just glad
it has to be brought up.
It has to.
There's shots in this movie where when he's got the mask on, he looks like Darkman in certain shots.
Right.
It's Darkman and Shadow.
The lack of the lack of features on Darkman, and he almost looks like that. But anyhow, I'm going to say Darkman is better.
All right, Charlie.
Oh, it's Darkman. I've loved Darkman ever since I saw it, and finding out about that. I was going to bring that up later because I was like, what version would Sam Raimi have done?
Yeah,
had he actually got to develop it, knowing what we got. Honestly, I'm happy he got turned down. Why?
Yeah, I love Darkman.
Thing.
Yeah. I love Darkman 1, 2, and 3. I love all of them.
I've got the comics. It's great.
Okay, so Ross, what do you like better, Darkman or Shadow?
Well, I'm gonna be the contrarian again.
Oh, geez.
Well, look, the Shadow. They spent I think the budget was higher for the Shadow, and every penny of it's on the screen. Despite its many faults, I walked out of there very happy with the Shadow movie. Mm-hmm. Darkman, I was like, okay, this is the Phantom of the Opera meets the Shadow. That's going to be twice as cool. And I always felt it could have been better and should have been more. Like the ending, that action at the ending, I just never really fell in love with. But they're great parts in this one too. To this day, I tell my friends, "Give me the fucking elephant," and it's like we all know,
right?
We all know what that's about, right?
Pink elephant.
Yeah.
I want the pink elephant. Why didn't he just give it to him? if I'm a snot-nosed punk kid working at one of these places, I can see this guy's mental. I'm like, okay, just give him the pink.
He's a carny, man. They've seen some shit. He wasn't worried about him.
So that's true. There's some great stuff like that throughout the movie, but it just never. And the villain in Darkman's fantastic too. I just can't. I know. But this is for you guys. It sounds like because there's this thing to me. There's this thing where it's like sometimes the thing that spun off of the original ended up being more popular or better than the original because like Flash Gordon or Star Wars is spun off from Flash Gordon, and that's the thing everybody loves. And the best Judge
1 hour 29 minutes. We almost made it 2 hours, buddy. But you had to throw a Star Wars reference in there.
Well, okay. The best Judge Dredd movie is RoboCop, right?
True.
So
maybe that. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I was wanting this one, whatever my disappointments were with the Shadow movie, I was hoping that like, okay, well, this one's not encumbered by trying to serve all the masters of the pulp magazine and the radio
Right.
show, and it can be its own thing as a movie, and surpass The Shadow. But it kind of, to me, it just kind of never really did.
I think I like Darkman. I love Darkman. I saw that in the theater. Oh, hold on a second. Super friend RR is here with a super chat. We got to take a look at that. Thanks so much, buddy. I appreciate it. On lunch break, so we can't say that's okay. While the shadow screamed, "I am vengeance." No, don't reference that movie. And use the Elder Wand to turn Professor X into a slug before Balrog attacked and enslaved the Ewoks. I smirked. RR always sees his own version of these movies. It's like it's always a more epic. It's always slightly more epic than the one we see. But I can give you the thank you, but it's covered. Oh well, it's
The best part.
Someone was from the Malaysian bootlegs of Harry Potter that came out like a week before the
right.
And how about Cora Jade? Since she's now concussed. My gosh, she's been injured so many times. I'm gonna have to remove her from my GIFs because it's like she's not even relevant anymore. Nobody knows who it is. She keeps getting hurt.
Yeah.
Thanks, RR.
Anyway.
Yeah, I like Dark. Man, okay, so Dark. I remember my mom came home, and we're gonna do Darkman on one of these. We're gonna do. I've been making notes. We're gonna do Darkman. We gotta do Rocketeer. We gotta do Highlander. My mom had come home from whatever movie she had seen, and she's like, "Jason, there's a movie that's coming out that you're gonna want to see opening night." I was like, "What is it?" She said, "Darkman." I said, "I think you're correct." I think I said just based on that name.
You had to get the title, Mom.
I was like, I think you might be correct on this one. And my mom didn't see Darkman. Oh, she may have seen Darkman in the theater though. But my mom is like the spoiler master. Like whatever, these people got mad at me for spoiling that garbage Daredevil show. My mom came home from, I think it was Die Hard 2. And I knew the whole movie in 5 minutes. So she loved Bruce Willis and Mad Max, Mel Gibson. So she saw every one of their movies, every one of them. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what it, and then would come back and tell me what women want. She saw it in the theater, came back home, told me the whole movie. Came back home, oh my God, she's like, there's so many people that die. There's this terrorist, and he gets to the airplane, and he crashes the whole plane. And she's like, there's at least 300 people. She's like, you will love this movie. And then and she just told me the whole movie. I was like, I will love this movie. I can't wait to go see it. And this is before people were crybaby losers. It's like she came home and told me the whole movie, and I was like, "This sounds awesome. I need to go watch this." And then I watched. I said, "Yes, he did kill 300 people in the beginning. That was awesome."
Her excitement hyped you up, man. Sometimes
that was the point of it.
Yeah, she sold it.
I mean, I was going to see Die Hard 2 anyways. Really, there was only one time where it happened, and I couldn't get into it until I was older. I may have been just slightly too young or didn't understand films enough, which was Pulp Fiction. They all went to go see Pulp Fiction. They came back and they're like, "Oh, Jay, it's so great." And all that. I was like, "Really?" And I thought, "Oh, it's kind of long and some parts were cool, but and then, obviously rewatching it after going through film school and learning about stuff and seeing more movies and more diverse movies. Back then it was like horror and action and fantasy. That's all I cared about. Then obviously Pulp Fiction's a masterpiece, but like, when it first came out, they all came back. They're like, "Oh, you got to see this! It's so good." And my parents didn't have any, or my mom didn't care about like what's on screen. It's just like, "You got to see Pulp Fiction. That's great." And it's like, okay, I don't think I should even Die Hard 2. I don't think I should have been seeing that. When did that? I don't think she should have been telling me to go see Die Hard 2 when that had come out. They wouldn't let me into Time Cop, for Christ's sakes. I got denied Time. I had to sneak in. I sneaked into Time Cop.
Mom said, "Could I have a note?"
I got a note.
My mom's gave me a note.
Yeah.
They wouldn't. No, they didn't do that. And they wouldn't let you. I had to sneak into Time Cop. They would not let you. But I saw Freddy's Dead. They wouldn't let me see Time Cop. But I saw Freddy's Dead in the theater.
They kicked us out of Candyman. We couldn't watch that, but at the same time, we could watch Dr. Giggles, which to me is like 12 times more gory.
Did you do the South Park thing and get a homeless guy and give him vodka and buy your ticket?
It doesn't. You can't. It doesn't go that way. They're looking at you. So when I actually saw Showgirls in the theater, and I was not allowed, but I knew the usher, so he let us in. You could buy the ticket. Nobody cares about buying the ticket. There's usually, there was also people that care about buying the ticket, but usually they don't pay attention. but they look at you before you go in as well. So it's not like you got the ticket and you're good to go. It's a second check. And I knew the guy, so they let me in on that one. So I got to see that movie in the theater. I didn't think it was that bad. That was fine. I don't know anyone hates that movie, but anyways. Okay, what about this comic? You guys ever get into this? This Masks, and I read this. This is Green Hornet, Kato, Zorro, the Spider, and the Shadow, all in a comic together, doing a lot of cool stuff. This is a fun
about it, but I've never read that one. I've got some of the other Darkman ones that are over there on the side there, but not the Masks.
Yeah, this is neat. Yeah, Army Darkness and Darkman. That's a cool. That's a cool.
I got some of those.
Or how about
like
DC?
the one that's like a magazine size Darkman when the movie came out? It's like
Yeah,
let's take a look at
the
that.
Marvel one. Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't like that one either. It just did not live up to the potential. It was boring as hell.
Which one? The magazines one?
The Masks one and
or Masks?
Going back to your question about the Spider, I think the Spider is more of a code name than a character or a costume.
Right. Yeah, I know. Yeah, and well, he leaves the mark of the Spider just so that no one else gets.
Right, because that goes to that's in like also the Mark of Zorro, the black and white Mark of Zorro movie.
Right, where he's not Zorro, it's like his code or whatever.
I can't even think of the actor. Who was the actor who played
Tyrone Power?
Tyrone Power. I'm old.
Jesus, help me out here.
Brain fart.
Oh,
it's
my
almost
goodness.
bedtime, guys. Come on, time change.
Yeah, this time change necessary. So I've got the entire series of this. This is when DC did a universe with no superpowers. So it was Batman, the Spirit, and Doc Savage teaming up to fight guys with no power. So it was all on no power. So no Superman, no Flash, no Green Lantern. So you did have like Spirit. Sorry, Spirit.
Right.
Sorry?
The Avenger was in that too, wasn't he?
Avenger could have been in that one too, yes. Yeah. I really like the Avenger books, but they changed him around too. So, funny thing, if you do the Avenger, these pulps are brutal. If you did the Avenger, what are you going to do for the Avenger? Are you going to do malleable face Avenger, or are you going to do, because he lost those abilities, and then it was basically just Justice Inc. and they're investigating crap.
Just like one.
You have to do it. But the thing is, to me, you have to do the malleable face. Otherwise, the character is just a guy investigating, which is still cool.
Yeah, what's his unique thing that makes him unique in the marketplace? It's the same thing as the Shadow. Yeah.
Well, you can malleable his face all you want, but if the dude you're trying to disguise yourself as is 5'5" and you're 6'3", that's going to be like a problem.
Yeah.
Right. Now this is like a Darkman.
I was going to say it's essentially Darkman when you're talking about him.
Yeah, I would argue. Yeah, I would argue Darkman. Darkman's also got like a lot of the spider stuff in it.
Yes, it does. Yeah,
and I would say that would be like, basically he would make these rubber things and put it over his head. Then like some totally other actor would be like, flattening the seams down, and that's the only way you could do that, because even now, like with 4K, the rubber appliances just don't come across. There's no way you could do that master of disguise thing anymore, like in a modern film that's going to be seen anywhere in 4K.
But the Mission Impossible movies have done it great the way they did it.
Mission Impossible pulls it off still.
They've done it perfectly where it's like they just peel it off or whatever.
That's a lot more money. When what Ross is talking about, like seeing it now, if they had done it back in the day.
Oh yeah, and they had done it back in the day, it would have been kind
of clunky and stuff like that. But I love knowing like the Avenger and the Spider, which I don't know a lot of these.
They're awesome.
Finding out more, you definitely tell that Sam Raimi was a huge fan of pulp.
Right, I love Darkman. I thought it was sick. I walked in there and I was like, "This is like." I didn't know who the Avenger was at the time of Darkman, but you're never getting the Spider. You're thinking I'm never getting any of these guys. I'll just have Darkman, and he's cool enough, and he can disguise and do stuff. And I like.
But there's a little bit of each one of these sprinkled in. There's a little bit of the Avenger, a little bit of the Spider, a little bit of the Shadow, and it's all right there. It's definitely one of those things I want to read more on these guys now, and then go rewatch Darkman.
just watch Darkman again.
Watch Darkman again.
Yeah. And I've read all of these, whatever the DC ones. I've read all of these ones, and I've read this too. So I like Avenger a lot because I like this malleable face idea that he can just, he makes himself out to be a guy. And then all of these guys have other guys. So like the Spider has Ram Singh, and he has, I forgot his girlfriend's name, which was brutal because I can't remember her name.
Sloan.
Van Sloan, yeah. And so he's got her. Avengers got like his guys. Doc Savage has the Fab Five or whatever it is. It's like he's got his guys. Everybody's got their.
There always had to be guys. Phantom had guys. Every
Phantom
had guys. Yeah.
Did the Avenger have like he had an African American couple, which was like really revolutionary at the time.
Yeah, Justice Inc. has a lot of cool characters, and they're actually pretty neat too. Like they go and do. It's not like. Well, even Ram Singh does a lot in the Spider. I feel like he's in there. Like if I was doing a Spider, I would out of all these people, I would do a Spider movie, and I'd love to do it because the Spider is I just love the Spider. He's awesome, but I also love Operator 5, and that's like I don't know. I've read a lot of James Bond, but Operator 5 is also awesome. It's tough because Operator 5 fights really crazy stuff like that blimp that was invisible in like book 2 or 3. Shit, that was friggin' awesome. And like there's like shit falling, and there's like they had a giant magnet and they're like ripping like stuff into the sky, and you're like, what is happening? Like, that was, and he's got a belt sword, that's sick, and he's got the gas ring. This is the like.
All that stuff has to be like in a period piece, right?
Period piece. I would only do period pieces. I don't like.
Now, did you ever see those Spider books that came out in the 70s that had Steve Holland on the cover, and they were trying to sell them as contemporary?
Oh yeah, that's a Dynamite. Is they talking about the Dynamite comics?
No. They were paperback novels, Spider paperbacks that had Steve Holland as the model for the Spider, and they were trying to sell them like as 70s or 80s contemporary novels.
Oh my god, no, this is terrible.
Yeah.
So I don't terrible.
But I own them, but I haven't gotten around to read them. I don't know if they just like took all the 1930s things out of it, or if you just you buy it thinking it's like the Executioner, and then you read it and you're like, oh, this is clearly a 30s, 40s pulp novel.
I just bought a bunch of. So last time I was at Steve's place, I always go to Value Village, and some guy dumped his Executioner books. So I got like 4 or 5 books for like $2 each. I got a whole shit ton of them. And they've got a few at my Value Village as well. But this is the Spider, and look, geez, what's this remind you of?
Yeah, I do not like that web mask at all.
Oh, really? I thought it's kind of because they had to make them different. So I've got this entire run. I bought it all in trades because I wasn't there for the original issues as they were coming out. But it's again now Miles Morales stole this look, and you're like, so now there's Spider-Man Noir is coming out.
I was going to say that's more noir.
Yeah.
And Spider-Man Noir, I'm on 2 sides. I saw him, I was like, oh, this is so cool. They ripped off the real Spider. Yeah. And then I'm like, but now everybody and their dad is going to be walking around saying, oh, Spider-Man Noir is the greatest thing ever. And then they're going to start using the word pulp, and then I'm going to have to punch them in their heads. It's like I can already, because I know that show's coming, I can already foresee myself beating up everybody. I need to like mentally prepare.
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to happen. All of a sudden, everyone's going to come out of the woodwork. Oh yeah, this is like one of those pulp heroes, isn't it?
Well,
and it's like
everyone was like, "Oh, this is what Pulp Fiction is. It's Quentin Tarantino."
Yeah.
And I was like, "No, not at all. No. It's not people sitting around talking for 20 minutes." So I don't like that. To me, that spider version is that's way too cartoonish. The 90s, all those 90s movies, they would either like lean into the comic strip like Dick Tracy, or they would try to pretend like the hero isn't the costume and the costume isn't the hero and all that. And that's what they did with like Batman Returns and the Shadow and some of these others. I'm like, this one would have been a good 90s movie, because if they just stuck to like, he's the master of men and a master of disguise, no powers, and the spider is a code name, and he's got the ring, and don't worry about marketing it to kids. If they had done that, they probably could have, and not spend like $40 million or whatever the modern equivalent of that would be. Just, because like I said, there was a lot of stuff that they spent money on in the Shadow movie that really didn't need to be there. And instead of focusing on that kind of stuff, they had worried about like making sure that the relationship between him and Margot Lane was airtight, and the progression, like actually have Shiwan Khan have a plot that comes in the form of a mystery that the Shadow can solve piece by piece. Because the guy who wrote the pulp novels was a magician, and that was like part of the appeal of all the ones that he wrote, was like they were mystery box. They were like literal mystery boxes, but there was like something inside the mystery box, unlike the other mystery box that we all hate. But there was something inside, there was something in there, and something in there, and there was like there was a point to all of it, and it was something you could solve too. Like you reread the book and you go like, oh yeah, that was the clue.
Right.
And like, in the Shadow movie, I'm just sitting there enjoying all the Shadow pieces, but it's kind of like, there's not really a clue. There's not really a setup. There's not really, there's little parts of it that sort of call back to each other, but it's not like a solid mystery.
We're watching him solve a mystery, but we already know the answers. We're watching him go through and figure out
Columbo.
what we already know.
Columbo, yeah.
It's kind of like Columbo. But yeah, that's what kind of kills the detectiveness of it, is it's not including us in the unknown, other than the building not being there. But anybody could have figured that out. It's that he is on this journey trying to figure it out. But we're sitting there going, "You'll get there. Hold on. You were so close. You almost got it there."
Steve, what were you going to say? And then I wanted to talk about the mystery thing for a second.
I was going to say, if anyone wants to see J-Man turn into Godzilla, try and tell him that anything modern is a pulp thing.
So the spider outfit here, this is from the serial. So the serials brought that bad boy in, and then Dynamite went with that.
Yeah,
they did that to make him look different. Otherwise, he's a guy in a hat. Again, it's all these fedora guys and trench coats and what. But the thing with the mystery, hold on, is not my problem. Mysteries are dead. They're dead. Nobody can do them properly anymore at all. Right. They did the Batman movie where it's a mystery, and it's terrible. And it's not even like Columbo, because there's only two kinds of mysteries. There's like Murder, She Wrote mysteries, and then there's a Columbo mysteries. So so it's Agatha Christie, which is you're reading the book, you're with Poirot or Marple or whoever, it could sometimes it's a random detective or whatever, and you're reading it along, and you can figure it out, or like what you're saying, Ross, at the end, you're like, oh shit, yeah, that was that clue. Okay. Or there's the Columbo style mystery where we know, because we know it's the Riddler. Like we know Riddler is the villain, so that's not a mystery. It's how is Batman going to figure out the Riddler's clues to get that? Now that's how Batman is, because the villains are important. Sometimes in Batman comics there is an actual mystery where it's a new villain who we don't know about, and that's usually a one-off villain for a story that you don't really know, or it could be a surprise like Hush or something. So it's like those are your stories. Now, when they did it with the Batman and they made it noir, which they didn't, and they made it a mystery, which they didn't, and they made it gritty, which you couldn't see anything in the movie. It's like I could see when Alec Baldwin was playing the Shadow, he was more visible than when Batman was being Batman in that movie, because you couldn't see shit. Right. So it's like that. So that's their interpretation of this now. And then you watch it, you're like, this. So if they would have done the Shadow that way, I think it would have been even worse, because the only reason the Batman actually is happening is because the Batman is Batman. If that movie was any other character, I guarantee you 4,000% everybody would be like, this is a boring nightmare. Yeah. Guaranteed 100%.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on all those things. And I agree with you on the two different kinds of mysteries, the Columbo approach and the Sherlock Holmes approach.
Right. I like saying Jessica Fletcher just because it's cheesy and it.
All right, fair enough.
No, I'm just joking. It's Agatha. It's
Well-
Agatha Christie and Columbo. Give Columbo his.
And 30 years ago, there were more people who could write mysteries. And you're right. Now as a matter of fact, James Patterson, the #1 best-selling mystery writer in America, wrote a Shadow book a few years ago, and it was dog shit. He wrote a Doc Savage and the Shadow book, and I have a hard time believing that a guy who's old enough to have been a Shadow fan of the radio show and the pulps in real time as they were coming out, because he's older than us, I have a hard time believing that it was his dream to write the Shadow, but then make it all about a teenage girl of color.
What, in 1930? Who's solving the crime or whatever?
No. He's like goes into suspended animation kind of, and the story's mostly about this girl who I think is somehow descended from it. But anyway,
God,
that aside, and it's clearly written to be the pilot for some Netflix series. But that aside, yes, I think they could have still kept the Columbo approach, where you already know that the villain is going to be whoever the guest star is,
right,
for that week's episode. But the way the clues are presented in the Shadow movie that we got are kind of crappy. It's just like happenstance. It's almost like on the level of the Adam West Batman TV show, where through bizarre word association they figure out that from the fabric on the umbrella that the Penguin's going to rob the museum, on the 2 days later. So,
well, first of all, I've been doing weekly every Tuesday, folks. New Batman 66 video drops.
Yes.
I don't review them because they're all 10 out of 10, so there's not really any point in actually reviewing it.
No, I'm not dissing those, because those were my gateway drug to all of this.
Right.
So I will never badmouth those in any way, shape, or form. But seriously, if they spent what was in the 90s an insane amount of money, right.
I know that was from that movie.
Amount of money on the Shadow movie, they really needed to punch up the mystery part of it, and the threat level and all of it. Because you had Ian McKellen, so they set up that he's colorblind, so that he's going to have to cut the wire, and he's not going to be able to see the colorblind. Well, there are setups throughout. It's not right. There's not a lot of stuff. Not everything comes out of nowhere, but it's just really poorly done in a lot of cases, and they really didn't know whether they were making a comedy or a serious movie or whatever. It tried to be the Swiss Army knife of entertainment, and it just was blunt all the way around. So,
that's what they're. I mean, that is. See, that is what they're doing.
I'm sure the studio gave them tons of notes.
They made it hell. Yeah.
Yeah, they made it hell. This is how it goes with these properties, right? And they're thinking, oh, well, this movie did. Let's say Batman was. I guess Batman really is the turning point.
Yeah,
89 is the turning point.
Yeah.
Right.
So after that, right? That's literally they actually wrote. They should have did it like Amazing Spider-Man, where they wrote "Turning Point" on the thing.
Going by the Easter eggs that made it into the film,
mm-hmm.
The writer, the screenwriter, either loved the Shadow or did a shit ton of
research.
David Cope, he loved the Shadow. Yeah.
And same thing with Russell McKay. He either loved a version, whether it was the radio show or the pulps or whatever. He loved something about the Shadow, and the two of them conspired to put nothing to keep me entertained for 2 hours back in the day. But normies I'm sure the normies just felt left out in the cold. Because
let me take a look and see how it did at the box office. But
my theory on all of this, though,
it cost $40 million and it made 48. I checked this.
I feel like after Superman 1 and 2, studios were like, okay, let's get our own sort of comic and pulp stuff ready, and so they commissioned scripts and everything, and then they all kind of fizzled into development hell, and then in '89 Batman hit in a big way, and then these
Right.
studios were like, "Oh my God, what do we have on the decks?" Right, and then and then all of a sudden you got like Dick Tracy. It's like all this weird stuff, right? It's like it's
Right.
not like
They were
Hawkman
cheap.
or like Wonder Woman or something.
Yeah.
It's Dick Tracy. It's the shot. It's like all this stuff from the studios, the generation that was running the studios.
Yeah,
Right.
it is. Yeah,
You know,
you're
and even
absolutely right.
Rocketeer is from the '80s, but it's like a '40s thing,
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, the
Yeah, and Rocketeer, but that's the guy who made Captain America, right? What's his name,
Right.
Joe Johnson, and like
Yeah.
Captain America. The first Captain America movie is my favorite MCU movie, I think. So like, I like that period style. Like, I think having Captain America be in World War II is like super cool.
But they repeatedly say that era is a tough sell to. I mean, that was a tough sell to our generation. So you can just imagine what it is like to try to sell it to kids now.
But everyone likes Captain. You know what the thing is? It's like everyone can say whatever and tell that, and then the movie is people really like the movie. You can't really for sure tell. That's like people don't like a movie. Then later it grows bigger and it gets a cult following, and then it's like, oh, like Dread was another example. Nobody went to go see Dread, and now every time I go anywhere, I don't see anyone saying, "Oh, Dread was trash." All I see is, "Oh, well, they should have made a part 2." And then my response to that person is usually like, "Oh, did you go see it? Did you go see part 1 in the theater? Because that's what they really needed from you, and you didn't go."
Yeah.
So it's like,
I remember in real time being frustrated by that. Like
in real
just,
time,
you and I were like, "What that? Why aren't people watching this?"
there's nobody there. I think, and actually, the top 3 guys on the board here, did we see The Raid together?
I saw it in the theater, so I must have saw it with you. Yeah.
So I think there was more people at The Raid than at Dread. I'm not 100. Yeah. And because there's like, oh, it's like they're in a building, which is the only similarity there is.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, so you can't make a building after Die Hard. You can no longer have a building in a movie anymore. They've shut it down.
They were filmed at the same time. No one ripped anyone off.
Yeah, nobody ripped
I
anything.
hate that argument about those.
Both of those movies were Assault on Precinct 13. So
Right. Well, yeah. I've seen Assault on Precinct 13 4,000 times. I have Bishop's autograph, which is great. He's the best. Anyways, so like we should do that for one of these. But yeah, so it's like, oh, there should have been a sequel to Dread. It's like, right, and you should have been there for the first one. It's like, well, I didn't see it because of whatever reason in my head. It's like, well, why weren't you going to see a comic book movie? Because then you get these people. This is why I get tense at these people. They're like the comic book fans that come, 5 years later. Oh yeah, I love. It's like, well, you weren't there for Dread. It's like, well, I thought you loved all this. It's better. You know what's the best thing? I'll tell you. The best thing was I had an employee at my escape room. I won't say his name because I'm not sure if he would want me to, but he came in and he was watching these comic book movies, MCU and whatnot. And he's like, I really like these. He goes, you always talk about the comics and stuff. What do you think I should read? And then I told him, read this and this and this. And he's like, I said, okay, who do you like first in the movie? Oh, I really like Hulk. I said, you like Hulk? That's easy because I've got all those on PDF. I said, I can give them all to you right now and you're good to go. Boom, read that. Who else do you like? You like Thor? Okay, start. You don't have to do Journey into Mystery, but start whatever. I don't know the number, right? Well, sure. Start there and read that. And he read them. And then he went and he came, Sean, remember he did come to a show with us before he moved to
that guy? Yeah, okay. Yeah,
that was my employee. He came with Sean and I. He said, when's the next time you go? Can I tag along? I was like, yeah, sure, tag along, no worries. He tagged along and we told him, we're sitting there. He's like, what do you think of this one? I was like, no, don't get that one. That's it. Don't come out saying you're this guy and fight me on Twitter. Just come out and say, listen, I'm new to the game. I like this Captain America character. It looks pretty good. What do you think I should do? And then the comic book fans embrace everybody. This is a lie.
We'll give you a reading list, like a scroll. Here's the Excel sheet of shit you should read.
We're not the enemy of these properties. We're not what they're trying to make us out in all of, Hollywood and all this stuff. We were the ones shunned when we were reading comics and shit like that. Now now should be our spotlight, but now all of a sudden we're the bad guys again.
It just went right over our heads somehow.
Somehow it's reverted back.
We had like 4 years of good times, and then it just
and that's all you get. You're done. You're out. Well, that was the thing with like I actually understand the thinking behind shows like She-Hulk, where they were like, but I think they went too far with that, where it was like, we don't want anybody who's like reading the comics to do this. There's like an Excel sheet, or there's a 5-page series Bible of the comic material you should read and know before you get into one of these shows, because that fandom will get out there on YouTube and go to conventions and talk to their friends and hang out in comic shops and either talk you up or talk shit about you.
Yeah.
If you don't give them at least 20 minutes of what they expect to see.
But then that actually influences the viewership, because like people like J-Man knows this, like people at work will ask me, and they'll be like, "Oh, this new Captain America movie's coming out. What do you think?" And if I tell them it's crap, they're not going. And if I tell them like, you know what, I think it looks kind of interesting, they're gonna go. Like they're seeking our advice.
Right.
And
so
so
is
like,
this...
I've swayed people from watching like 20, 30, maybe even more people from watching movies, because that whole family's not going to go now. Right. Or they go because I think it's going to be interesting, right?
So you're an influencer without even having to wear a bikini on Instagram.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so you're telling me Born Again is going to have all this?
Out. Don't let those pictures out, Sean.
Okay. So you're telling me Born Again's going to have all this crap in it? It doesn't even have Karen or Foggy or any of those guys. So like, and the other thing too is like, it happened in comics. This is my favorite thing. It's like, oh, well, in this and that. Yeah, but when comics are around for decades and decades and characters are getting stale, they liven it up a bit and they change things around, knowing that that's going to pass, and then it's going to revert back. Eventually, it'll just come back to what it is.
Comics are cyclic, however you want to say it. They go. But the problem is studios got way too involved in what's trending. What is everyone talking about? Only now, and we're just starting to see a glimmer of it, of them going, we got 1 million retweets on this thing we did, but those people didn't go watch the movie. They're not, they just want to be part of the trend and have their voice heard, but they're like, I'm not going to go watch that movie.
Well, it's Morbin time.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, they're being swayed because they think that's what the people want. And I'm like, no, you're looking at social media instead of looking at your fans. Those aren't your fans. And you're losing money every fucking time.
So there was a guy who was talking about this Daredevil on YouTube, and he said the Born Again storyline had already been done as part of the Netflix series.
Yes, season 3 had that, where he has the black. He's injured and he has to heal himself up, and everything's destroyed. And he started. That's literally. I pulled them out. Sean and I went through them all. Literally, Sean and me and Clobby have 30+ hours of going page by page, the whole, and not just Born Again and the Man Without Fear. I like the Man Without Fear. That's cool. Yeah. Listen, we went. Frank Miller. What's the first comic you drew of Daredevil? We went from that one,
right?
Not Born Again and Man Without
the whole
Fear.
Frank Miller run. Yeah.
Everything, every page.
You guys are bigger dorks than me, so
every page.
And I respect that.
Yeah.
But with that one, he said that this guy said that actually the storyline that they're using for this series was a Charles Soule story.
I have that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're doing the Age of Ultron thing where there's like they're borrowing the title from that run, but it has nothing to do with that run.
Exactly.
They're doing the Ian Fleming James Bond thing where like they'll take like a title and
just
use
one of
the
they've done that for years.
It has nothing to do with
they've done that all the time since Age of Ultron. Since Age of Ultron,
that was kind of the first one that did it. Yeah, I mean that's
so going back to She-Hulk, I could understand why they wouldn't want to have to go like, well, actually there's 2 She-Hulks. So there's the Savage She-Hulk that David Kraft wrote, and then there's the John Byrne run, and then there's the far superior Slott run that has the
nobody's ever said Superior and Slott in the same sentence in the history of the universe until today. First time today.
Back in the day, the Dan Slott run, it was coming right off the end of Ally McBeal and L.A. Law.
That's a piss.
Law shows.
That's the fake She-Hulk.
It was a fun. there was like tons of TV worthy material in there, and they just like junked all of it and went like completely off the script to do like sitcom shit. Not even good sitcom shit. So
That's the real shit, She-Hulk, and it's
yeah,
not a sitcom.
like even the John Byrne She-Hulk run requires too much explanation to normies for it to be fun and funny.
I don't think so at all. People are used to Daredevil or Deadpool. They're used to weirdness. I think it would have.
No,
Sean and I talked about this. Look, they don't understand. They don't understand. If you're going to do She-Hulk, you could do Savage She-Hulk and just have it be a woman Hulk, but they don't want that. Okay, so fine, because they have an actress, and so that's off the table. Right. So then you got to go to the next thing. What's the next thing? Which is this John Byrne stuff. He only did the first few issues, and he came back, did a couple more. But that was Breaking Comics. So Sean and I actually did a thing on this one. That was Breaking Comics, where she would go to another she's like, I'm late for work. And then she would step through a panel.
Tear through the panel. She would rip
and then, oh, look, I'm at work now, right?
Yeah. Right.
So I said,
that works in the graphic
hold on.
format. Okay.
No. I know, but no, hold on. That's not, hold on.
All right, go ahead.
Hold on. That's in a comic. So you just said, but that's in a comic book. She can't tear a page. Correct. Right. So what is the equivalent? The equivalent of that on a TV series is she's like, I got to get to work and I'm late. Wait a minute. The set for my TV, my office set is the set right over there. And then she walks through the set people and then goes around the platform. And then she's like, great. Now I'm at work. I made it. And then it continues normally. That's the same way you break a show. So instead of having the reader do stuff, it's like, oh, hurry up and turn the page. She could be like, can you guys cut to commercial break already? Because like I don't know what to do here. So instead of saying, hey, reader, why don't you turn the page to the next comic because we're done on this page? Instead of saying that, she turns to the camera and says to the viewer, she's like, do you think this is a good scene? I think we should just move along. Let's move along.
Yeah,
and then
they could have done that, but they weren't. Those writers are way over their heads. And they even kind of revealed this. They didn't know how to write courtroom drama, so that was out. But that's the whole point of the character. And
the Dan Slott ones.
That part of it was absolutely ridiculous because even I know from watching other courtroom shows that you don't like reveal your evidence for the first time in the courtroom. It's kind of like the arguments are shared and there's things that are said and done in the back room. And
it's a shame. They killed the character, I think.
But, so here's the thing. So going back to John Byrne's run on She-Hulk. What was the meta behind the scenes context for them to break the comic book? Why did they do that?
She-Hulk wasn't selling. I have no idea.
Because this was like after they canceled the not selling David Kraft She-Hulk. Yeah. They brought back the John Byrne one as a joke. So the whole thing was created to be like a giant goof on bad comics, or what was perceived to be a bad comic.
Right.
She knows she's a B character in her own or she knows she's a B character who has her own title, and then all the villains were like Marvel's B trash villains that somebody came up with, high on pot or something to fill 22 pages that month, and so they reused them like in the most meta way possible. So there enough. So when they did that episode of She-Hulk where they go to the therapy thing, they introduced for the first time all these trash villains, and it's like ha ha ha, the old sitcom trope of we're going to a therapy session and see what and that was poorly the way
it's not a sitcom anyway. So the other thing is that so let me
the meta. So the meta thing doesn't work, and that's why I think Watchmen, the movie, didn't work, was because there wasn't like the Watchmen comic, the meta version of Watchmen comic is basically this is the end of comics. This is the last hurrah for all these classic tropes and types and iconic types of characters. We put a Superman type of character, a Batman type of character. This is their final hurrah. What would that look like in a fictional universe? And they hadn't had enough comic book movies to justify doing that as a movie just yet. If they released it now, everybody would have understood
I get what you're saying. Yeah, that makes what you're saying makes sense. There wasn't enough superhero movies to make that matter, because you'd be like, right. But is that Zack Snyder's kind of best copy movie or whatever? Well, I guess 300 is better, but Watchmen is awesome because, see, in Watchmen the comic, they read the pirate comic,
right?
So instead, he put the animated pirate cartoon within the movie.
Yeah,
he didn't do, like, see, that's what She-Hulk should have done. He knows that. He's like, well, we're not gonna have comic book panels of a random comic show up and have this big parallel of Ozymandias's character and his downfall, or what he thinks is his heroic deeds, really, which is his downfall, parallel with this guy who's fighting these pirates, and he'll do anything to get back. He'll commit any atrocity in the name of getting back to his family or whatever. And then at the end, it's like he's just become a villain worse than so that's not going to work by showing comic panels. So he made it a cartoon, and then they told him to take it out because it was too long. But I watched the full, when I watched the Watchmen, I watched the full 3.5 hours. So that was the smart thing that the She-Hulk writers couldn't wrap their head around. And Watchmen, the movie, is a great movie, whether it came out in the right time or not. I agree with you. It's the wrong time because there wasn't enough popular superhero movies to understand that movie, deconstructing all those characters.
There wasn't a universe constructed yet that they would.
And he didn't know there was going to be a universe, and then he didn't know that there was going to be two phases of garbage.
No. Well, I mean like once you've seen like all the, or most of all the MCU movies,
you can watch.
Normie would understand, like, oh, that's this like character, and that's
but Watchmen's too hard for people anyways. Like, you'd have to know history. I literally, there's people like, it's like, okay, yeah, there's the presidents. So it's like, well, yeah, Nick's, like, they say Woodward and Bernstein, it's a throwaway quick little tiny line, and it implies that it implies that JFK was shot by comedian. It also implies that he killed Woodward and Bernstein, which is why Nixon gets reelected, and there's no issues there. And they're like, oh, we elected him for the 5th time, or whatever they say in that movie. It's like, well, wait a minute, how many? What? How can that be? And it's like, so there's all this weird crap. Yeah, I don't even think even and he goes, oh, good thing we won that Vietnam War. Eh? Well, that was pretty good that we won that one. Yeah, that was good.
Understand it's an alternate timeline too.
It's an
alternate.
Watch it. That's
like, what is all this happening? I admit the first time, because I had never really read it till I watched it. You watch it and you're like, this is all a little different. But as a comic book reader, I go, oh, okay, now I see what's
that's cool. He's on the grassy knoll, which is so great. He's literally on there. You can see the comedian like, yeah, I got him. And you're like, shit, that was good. and
She-Hulk, instead of constantly reminding you that you're watching a TV show, Chuck the comic book always reminded you that you were reading a comic book.
Right.
But instead of always reminding you that you're watching a TV show, it would have been an opportunity to address a lot of stuff that people have asked about the MCU and do stories about it. Like, who owns the property disappeared after the snap? Who pays for all the property damage after the superheroes have a fight? Who is accountable to so they could have little court cases. And
they're not like smart enough. I'll let Sean take his Sean can take his what if hype if you want to take it. Like, I mean, I watched a few episodes. Like, this is trash. It's not what if, and I don't know what we must have done a stream on it. And I don't know, Sean, you broke it down. It's like,
what if is just lazy writing, because there's nothing that really naturally connects. They just come up with worst case scenarios that don't really fit what would have happened. And it's like what was the one where someone cuts like a whole bunch of people in half with well, I can't remember what it was, but it was like, that wouldn't you're just doing that. It doesn't naturally spring forward from the concept. You're just doing a bunch of hot take nonsense, right? And like the what if comic was just worst case scenarios of what happened if Fall of the Mutants happened for real or something like that.
Right, but the thing with the comics is okay. So again, what is what if? So what is it's remember that storyline where the Punisher came and tried to his first appearance that he was after Spider-Man and then he didn't know.
Right.
Well, what if Punisher did kill him? That's what if is.
My problem with what if was
what if Star-Lord is Black Panther? Like, what is that?
How stupid was I that I thought they're going to go back to the comics? Like, no, it's because to them MCU is Marvel,
But they didn't do that.
But they could if they had
They
done
didn't do that
okay.
either.
So
they didn't do what if MCU stuff. So pick something from MCU.
Not really.
Iron Man reveals himself. Okay, end of Iron. I just made this one up. Iron Man at the end of part 1. It's like, I'm Iron Man. What if Iron Man didn't reveal himself?
Yeah,
that happened in MCU. That's a what if MCU thing.
Yeah.
You don't just do what if.
Yeah, what if Ultron won? That would have been a what if.
That's a what if.
Right. What if Quicksilver or whatever?
What if Scarlet Witch died? Scarlet Witch died and Quicksilver lived.
Right.
Yeah.
Any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So because remember, he shoots. So Ultron tries to kill him. Quicksilver comes and saves those people. He gets killed. What if Scarlet Witch had saved the Hawkeye and those guys, and then and she got killed, and then Quicksilver goes crazy because he loved his sister, and he goes mental and becomes a villain, and starts to blame everybody.
That's what they would do in the comics. But I thought that's what they were gonna do.
No. Yeah, we all thought.
We're just making this up now. We just gave them 3 right now in 2 minutes. Not even 2 minutes. Within 1 minute, we gave them 3 or 4 ideas there.
Because we're
Loki wins. What happens?
And so the meta reason that what if exists, in my opinion, is to give normies more characters that they can cosplay at a convention.
Yeah, that's all. That's the real reason.
All the characters
evil whoever
into the movies or the TV shows, they're on the screen for 5 minutes in the episodes. Now it's official. You can cosplay that.
It's canon as far as being in the MCU.
I saw a
cosplay. Put him in the video game too.
I saw a cosplay of that girl from the end of that Invasion series that they made, where she has the Drax arm.
Right, there you go.
It's like a girl with a Drax arm.
I don't know what you're talking about. I forgot about that show.
I didn't even watch it, but everyone knows that meme where she has the it's like all of Drax's time because she can turn into any Marvel character or something stupid. I can't remember.
She's a gender swapped quagmire after you discovered this on the internet.
Nobody knows what you're talking about. Okay. Next week, maybe we'll just take a break next week then. Maybe we'll just or maybe I'll do some kind of random thing. We'll see. So next week we'll take a break. The week after is Sunday the 23rd. What do you guys want to? We mentioned some ones here. We mentioned Highlander, Darkman, Rocketeer.
Ask the chat if they have any preference too.
Classic. I don't know. I can't tell. Oh, let's take a look at the poll. 13 votes. So 13 people voted. 23% of them say The Shadow is 5 out of 5. 46% of them say The Shadow is 4 out of 5, and 31% say The Shadow is 3 out of 5.
So good scores all the way around. Honestly.
That's pretty good.
No one thought it was garbage or anything. We'll think it was a win.
I mean, they wouldn't be bothering to watch this if they did, I think.
Yeah, that's true.
Nobody hates the movie that much to hear people trash it.
I don't know. What do you guys think?
Next week, I will be attending the 30th anniversary birthday bash of your new favorite comic book publisher.
Antarctic Press, yes. We've been sending these stuff. Are they sending anything to anyone? I know they reached out saying, "Oh, do you want to be an influencer?" I was like, "Sure, I don't care. What do I care? Send me the comics. I'll read them. I'm not gonna drool over them if I think it's trash, though. Just to let you know, I've literally said there's people that I super and I'm like, this comic's not that good.
Yeah.
So
it's I may have put in a good word for you. I don't want.
Oh, good. Well, I really liked Kendra. That's up, and Dreadlock. And someone commented, it's like they made a comic based on a hairstyle.
Yeah, hey,
mullet,
the comic or whatever. Mulit. Mulit.
Yeah.
Okay. So next Sunday we'll take the day off. The Sunday after that's 23rd. So what do you want? You want? There's Darkman. How about all 3 Darkmans? You think you want to do all the Darkmans?
Could probably get them all in. I mean, that gives us 2 weeks to watch them.
Is that enough time for everybody? I've seen them before anyways, but I would like to rewatch part 3 for sure, because that one I remember. I think I've only seen it once or twice.
I'll be out of commission for at least 5 of those days, but possibly I don't even know if I've seen the 3rd one.
I can loan them to people who need them. I have them, but I can loan them to people.
They're available online.
Oh, they're available. Okay. So yeah, the 23rd. Is that cool? You want to do that?
Would make it easier. So,
Yeah, let's do Darkman.
All right, Darkman trilogy.
All right.
Why not? That's a cool movie. All right, and that'll be easy.
We
And
got
we are going to
theme
do.
going, so let's keep it going.
Yeah, we are going to do Alan Quatermain and the Lost City of Gold and King Solomon's Mines, and I think I might do a verses for that. The way I do the verses.
Yeah.
I did. Owen and I did one together because I got Owen into those, and he got all pumped up, and then we did one on his channel, but we never did one on mine, and we never did it the way I like to do the verses.
Are you doing them? You mean the what's his
Like
name?
space, like story pasting, or yeah.
No, yeah, I know that. You're doing the Richard Chamberlain ones, right?
Yeah. The real Alan Quatermain.
And we're still tentatively on the 30th doing the Doc Savage.
We're definitely doing Doc Savage that on the 30th. Yeah.
On the 30th, okay.
And Scott is going to come for that, and
Yeah,
so we have a bunch of people who've never seen. Well, I don't think Steven has ever seen it. I don't think Charlie, you haven't seen Doc Savage. Oh, you have seen it. Nice. Okay. So Charlie, you're going to be the newbie on that one. That'll be fun.
Yep.
Doc Savage is awesome. That movie is like, keep in mind that's the Adam West version or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not the real.
It's not the books.
That's the hashtag not my Doc Savage, and they ruined it. And
It's like The Shadow. There's instead of 20 minutes, there's 15 minutes where it's like stuff played out in the movie that you read about in the books, and you're like, oh, it's the part where he's doing that, cool. And then there's Adam West shit too.
Right, but that movie, just like Adam West, is genius.
Right.
And
okay,
Princess Ardala's in it, and she's hot.
There you go. That's good. That's good enough to watch any movie.
Right.
Even I watched White Cannibal Queen this morning, and that was absolutely great. And then my wife she's like, "Did you like this movie?" Because she was kind of like, it was on while she was reading, and she's like, Did you like this movie that you just watched? I was like, how am I going to answer that? I'm like, firstly, of course I did.
Yeah.
Secondly, it's awful. I don't know what to tell you. It's Jess Franco. I have about 6 or 7 of his movies. It just goes into the Jess Franco back, and it's like what review? I didn't review it on my video because what am I going to review?
Well, your review is like, if you like this kind of thing, you'll like it.
I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
Stay away.
If you don't you saw the cover, I have to cover it because there's nudity on the cover. So either you're like, ooh, nudity on the cover, I'm in, or you're like, Lark, you came in here.
I've never seen a Jess Franco movie. You almost made me want to see that one.
He didn't. He didn't like it. He didn't like the movie. He literally said, "I'm making it for money." That's the only reason he made it. And and Vinegar Syndrome got my money.
Yeah.
All right, folks, we got to go. Anything, Charlie? What's going on this week for your?
Tuesday is The Matrix episode 199. We're
Nice.
closing in on episode 200. So, Matrix this week, and then Big Trouble in Little China the week after. So,
Oh my God!
ranking it out, man.
Yes. The movie that nobody understood. I had to explain that movie to everybody. I'm like, no, okay, he's like the sidekick, but he thinks he's the hero. But it's Kurt Russell's. Like, we know, but you're not getting it. Anyway,
No.
Ross, what do you got going on?
Oh, I'm going to Texas for a big chunk of the week. So, your number 4 is out.
Yes.
Something else that's coming out.
Yes.
So I've been trying to. Part of the delay in my giving my digital bundle out to everyone was, I have this comic from the 90s that I wanted to upscale and reformat and include.
Mhm.
And anytime I have to learn how to do stuff like that with Photoshop, I inevitably destroy more than I repair. So I'm terrified of doing it. And I've been putting it off for those reasons. So
All right.
it's gonna happen.
All right. Well, we'll hang in there.
Yeah, it'll be worth it.
Steve, what's going on? What do you got going on?
I just reviewed Mickey 17 on the movie Elite. I am reading The Hellbound Heart.
Oh, I've read that. Woohoo!
And when I do, I'm going to do a Hellraiser movie to Hellbound Heart book comparison.
Awesome. It's the same thing, except for Kirsty's the daughter instead of the girlfriend there. I wrote it for you.
Well, let's see, because
put copyright J-Man. No, yeah.
There are some differences, I think, but I have to rewatch Hellraiser to confirm.
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, you can't.
It's pretty close.
It's pretty damn like I mean, yeah, it's not exactly exact, but yeah. All right, Sean, what's going on?
I haven't shot anything for a while. I hope to this week, but in the meantime, lots of great comic book reviews and stuff on my channel. So stay tuned.
Wicked. All right, guys, we're back. Sean and I are back tomorrow. Legion live stream. Wow, 79 episodes. Jeez, that's crazy, man. And then I think most of us are back. Ross, you're not invited. Sorry to Recoil.
Yeah, we got Recoil Wednesday.
We're not to Recoil.
One has already seen it. I saw it before you guys.
Ha! It's not my channel. I can't.
Maybe I don't want to be on that channel.
That's right. You don't want to be on that. You don't want to be on that live stream. You don't need to watch Recoil. It's like, what are you doing? I just rewatched episode 1 and Attack of the Clones, and Attack of the Clones is awful. I'm sorry. It's so awful.
Man, it's my favorite one.
I know, Sean, and I feel so bad.
There's no
the love story is the worst.
The love story is awful.
The
rest of it is awesome.
No, you want to know why? Because they're two awkward people that aren't like used to dealing with members of the opposite sex, and that's exactly how nerds interact with each other.
I know, but you can chapter.
It's realistic.
Yeah.
Don't justify the awful. It's like, I hate you, but I kind of love you
too.
anyways, but I kind of hate you.
Yeah, it's like he massacres a whole village, and she's like, oh, yeah.
Oh, I still love you. I still kind of love you anyways, though. I'm like, okay, well, I also killed the women, and well, I still kind of love you, and the children. Yeah, okay, yeah.
I love the Plinkett thing where it's like the big X's coming.
They're just Tusken Raiders.
They're just Tusken Raider
Where's the
babies.
red flag guy running around in the background going, no, lady, no. Let's not talk about the age gap either between the two of them.
And she's like, "Oh, I love you too." It's like, you do? You've been pretty vocal that you don't, though, for like a long time. I've been watching this thing. I've been paying it. I've seen Phantom Menace 1,000.
Says no, but sure.
Yeah. I like Phantom Menace way more. That's for sure. I like Phantom Menace. I'm the only one. I don't care. At least I can get behind Jake Lloyd. I can't stand Hayden Christensen in that movie.
Yeah.
But Obi-Wan Kenobi walking around is awesome. I'll give it. So there's about 1 hour of really cool
the
stuff.
The Camino thing is cool, and the Jango Fett chase in
sonic seismic things. Oh,
and that whole ending in that Coliseum with those 3 creatures.
But then they keep cutting back, and every time that swipe comes, it's the swipe of death. I was like, oh god, no, we're back to this.
I know, but once they're at the Coliseum, it's all like that love thing's done, and it's like they're tied to the post and all that stuff.
It's very Edgar Wright. I don't know what your problem is.
I think if I was incognito and assassins were trying to kill me, I probably wouldn't wear extravagant dresses and costumes and capes walking around where I'm super out there. It's like, oh look. Where's the queen? Where's Senator Amidala? Oh, is it her in that amazing dress with that big hood and her big hair in Mos Eisley, where everyone looks like trash except for her? Like,
it's like disguising B.A. Baracus.
You shouldn't have wore that, Padme, you dummy.
I think that monster, the way he strategically tore her thing to have a little belly revealing in the most fashion designerly even way possible.
It should have just been more. It should have just ripped more, and then that would have been better.
Yeah,
I should. You know what? I should have directed that movie. It would have been way better. I can guarantee you that. I would have no dialogue. Natalie Portman would not speak. And Hayden Christensen would, and he's like, Obi-Wan says this, and I'm like, does he?
Oh,
he seems like he's pretty cool. I'm watching that. It's like, are you in the same thing that I'm watching, buddy? Because Obi-Wan looks pretty cool to me, and he's like, doesn't seem like he never does this, never does that. It's like, I haven't seen that, so is this just in your head?
Lucas needed help on the script.
Yes, help me out.
We know what he wants to do, but he's very awkward and fumbling and doing it, right?
So. Yeah, and Padme cannot. It's like, please escort her to Naboo. It's like, I just brought her here. Now we're going back to that. It's like, it's a 3-hour drive. I'm running low on gas, and it's from part 1, episode 1 to episode 2, she has gone back and forth from Coruscant to Naboo 4,000 times. She goes there, and then she just gets her, like, we better take her back to Naboo. I'm like, no. We just spent 1 hour of film time getting her here. I think she can stay. No, she needs to go back. I'm like, oh, we were just there, man. It's like, okay, go. And she shows up and doesn't do it. Padme didn't even do nothing. She showed up, and then she's like, well, Jar Jar, why don't you're not going to be in this movie much. Why don't you have a line and vote this guy in, even though it's a dumb idea? Okay, I'll vote him in. All right, thanks. And then, I got to go back to Naboo and do nothing. Oh, anyways.
Creating the Empire.
Crazy.
I had to beat that movie up a little bit. It's I guess it's still way better than anything Disney's done. So there's that. Yep. All right, people. See you tomorrow. Until next time.
Hey friends, you've just been listening to J-Man, and he is the smartest person who ever lived. So make sure you like and subscribe.